Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, she was scrubbing mildew from the rim when she noticed the porcelain felt uneven. Curious, she pried it up, and there on the underside was her full name etched into the ceramic next to a faint red smear. The tub was original to the house. She wasn't. Melody Winters had moved to the small town of Oak Ridge, Connecticut only 3 months prior. At 32, she was starting over after a divorce that had left her emotionally drained but financially secure. The Victorian house on Sycamore Lane had been a spontaneous purchase, charming, slightly weathered, and nestled among tall maples that whispered in the evening breeze. The realtor had mentioned the previous owner was an elderly woman who had passed away peacefully in her sleep. The house had sat vacant for nearly a year before Melody walked through its creaking doors and felt an inexplicable connection. The price had been surprisingly reasonable for a property with such character, with hardwood floors that still gleamed beneath decades of use and original fixtures that told stories of another era. Melody had spent her first week scrubbing, painting, and making the space her own. The bathroom was the last room to tackle, with its outdated fixtures and persistent dampness. The clawfoot bathtub, despite its age, had a certain elegance that convinced her to restore rather than replace it. And now on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in October, with rain tapping gently against the bathroom window, she found herself staring at her own name, Melody Ann Winters, etched with precise care beneath the tub she had bathed in for months. The red smear, when touched, flaked slightly onto her fingertip. Her first call was to her sister, Claire. "Maybe it's just a crazy coincidence," Claire suggested, her voice sounding thin over the phone. "Someone with the same name owned the house before." But the county records Melody had received during the purchase showed no previous owner with her name. The house had belonged to the Thornfield family for nearly 60 years before her. Her second call was to the local police department. Officer Daniel Hayes arrived within the hour, his young face serious as he examined the underside of the bathtub. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted, photographing the etching with his department-issued camera. "The precision suggests it wasn't done in a hurry, and this residue, will need to test it." The preliminary results, called in 2 days later, confirmed what Melody had feared in the deepest corners of her mind. The substance was blood, degraded by time but unmistakable in its composition. "We're taking this seriously, Ms. Winters," Officer Hayes assured her over coffee at the local diner. His notepad was open, pages filled with his neat handwriting. "But the blood is old, years old, not months. It predates your purchase of the house." The investigation began to unfold slowly, like a delicate origami pattern being carefully dismantled. Eleanor Thornfield, the previous owner, had lived alone for 23 years after her husband's death. Their only son, Marcus, had moved to Seattle in the late 90s and rarely visited. According to neighbors, Eleanor had been a private woman who kept to herself, especially in her final years. "She started getting confused," said Margaret Holloway, the neighbor across the street who had lived in Oak Ridge her entire 78 years. "The last time I saw her, maybe 6 months before she passed, she asked me if I'd seen the girl with the Winter name who kept walking through her garden at night." Officer Hayes documented every interview, every strange detail that seemed to form a pattern just beyond comprehension. The bathtub had been installed in 1982, according to the contractor records the department managed to locate. The Thornfields had been the only owners during that time. The investigation might have stalled there, dismissed as an unexplainable oddity, if not for the discovery in the attic. Melody had avoided the space with its steep stairs and musty smell. But as October turned to November and the chill became more persistent, she ventured up to retrieve the extra blankets the previous owner had apparently left behind. In the far corner behind a stack of water-damaged magazines from the 1990s, she found a small wooden box. Inside were newspaper clippings, yellowed with age, each one detailing missing persons cases from across Connecticut. 8 in total, spanning from 1983 to 1998. Young women, all in their late 20s or early 30s. None had ever been found. And paperclipped to the final article was a handwritten list of names. The third name on the list was Melody Ann Winters. The police returned with a search warrant the following day. The bathroom floor was carefully removed, section by section. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in to examine the foundation. Luminol was sprayed across surfaces invisible to the naked eye. "There's something here," the forensic technician said quietly, pointing to a pattern of fluorescent blue blooming across the bathroom wall. Blood spatter, cleaned but not eliminated, consistent with a high-velocity impact. The investigation shifted from curious anomaly to potential crime scene. Harold Thornfield, Alina's husband who had supposedly died of a heart attack in 1999, became the focus of renewed scrutiny. His body was exhumed from the local cemetery, revealing a truth that had been buried for over 2 decades. Harold had not died of natural causes. The fractured hyoid bone in his neck suggested strangulation. As winter descended on Oak Ridge, Melody moved into a hotel. She couldn't bear to sleep in the house, not with the knowledge that something terrible had happened there, not with her name etched beneath a bathtub by hands unknown, for reasons she couldn't fathom. The case broke open in January, when Marcus Thornfield finally agreed to be interviewed. His hands trembled as he sat across from investigators in the Oak Ridge Police Department. "My father had a list," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Women he'd selected. I found it when I was 16, hidden in his work shed. When I confronted him, he told me it was for a novel he was writing." Marcus paused, swallowing hard. "But I knew I'd heard the sounds from the bathroom late at night, the running water that never seemed to end. I was too afraid to tell anyone, even my mother. I think she knew, though. Toward the end, before her dementia took hold completely, she started talking about the girls Harold had brought home." The excavation of the Thornfield property began the following week. In the crawlspace beneath the east side of the house, forensic anthropologists discovered the remains of 5 individuals. DNA testing would eventually match 3 of them to women reported missing between 1983 and 1992. But the mystery of Melody's name remained unsolved. Harold Thornfield had died in 1999. Melody had only been 6 years old then, living 2 states away with no connection to Oak Ridge or the Thornfield family. He kept journals, Marcus explained during a follow-up interview. Pages and pages of women he'd seen on the street, in stores, on television. He'd write their names if he could learn them, or he'd make up names he thought suited them. Sometimes he'd predict the names of women he believed he'd meet in the future. The final journal, recovered from a safety deposit box in Harold's name, contained a list titled The Winter Girls. It included detailed descriptions of women with names related to the cold season: Holly, Neve, Crystal, Winter, and Melody Winters. His obsession had its own logic. The criminal psychologist consulting on the case explained to Officer Hayes. He believed he could somehow predict his future victims. The fact that someone with one of his predicted names actually moved into his house decades later is a statistical anomaly, disturbing but coincidental. But Melody couldn't accept this explanation. How had her full name, first, middle, and last, found its way beneath that bathtub? The precision was too perfect, the coincidence too great. She never moved back into the house on Sycamore Lane. It was eventually sold to a developer who demolished it completely, erasing the physical reminders of Harold Thornfield's crimes. The case file remained open, one of those rare instances where the facts can be documented but never fully explained. Melody left Oak Ridge, moving to Arizona, where the dry heat promised to chase away the lingering chill she couldn't seem to shake. But sometimes in her dreams, she still hears water running, endless and persistent, and feels the smooth surface of porcelain beneath her fingertips, where a name waits, etched into the darkness, patient and eternal. The women found beneath the Thornfield house were eventually laid to rest properly, their families finding a measure of closure after decades of uncertainty. But the list of names in Harold's journal contained 12 entries. 7 remained unaccounted for. And sometimes in small towns across New England, new homeowners make strange discoveries during renovations. A child's toy embedded in a wall, a letter sealed within a chimney brick, or a name carved into places that should have remained unseen, ghosts of intentions that outlived their creator. Officer Hayes kept a copy of the case file on his desk for years afterward. Colleagues would sometimes ask about the bathtub case, and he would shake his head, unable to provide the neat resolution they sought. Some mysteries, he would say, aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to remind us that the world is bigger and stranger than we can understand. And in quiet moments when the station was empty and the night pressed against the windows, he would sometimes open the file and look again at the photographs. A name etched in precise lettering, a list of women never found, and the face of Melody Winters, a woman who had walked unwittingly into a story that had been waiting for her arrival. Crime 2, the small town of Pineville, Massachusetts, had always been the kind of place where residents left their doors unlocked at night. A community of just under 12,000 people, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, where everyone knew everyone else's business, or at least they thought they did. Allison Mercer had lived in Pineville her entire 32 years. She taught 4th grade at the local elementary school, volunteered at the library on weekends, and was known for bringing her grandmother's famous apple pie to every potluck. Allison lived alone in a small blue house on Maple Street, inherited from her grandmother 5 years ago. Her cat, Oliver, was her constant companion, along with a collection of vintage cameras she'd been accumulating since college. October in Pineville meant the annual Harvest Festival and Flea Market, a tradition dating back nearly a century. Locals and visitors from neighboring towns would set up booths along Main Street, selling everything from handmade quilts to antique furniture. Allison never missed it. She had a particular fondness for old photographs, strangers frozen in time, their stories lost but somehow preserved. On the morning of October 12, 2023, Allison woke up early. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke. She dressed warmly in a burgundy sweater and jeans, grabbed her tote bag, and headed downtown. The festival was already buzzing with activity when she arrived. Allison spent the morning browsing, stopping occasionally to chat with friends and neighbors. At a small booth near the edge of the market, she found a box of old photographs. The elderly vendor, a man she didn't recognize, watched silently as she sorted through them. Most were typical, faded wedding portraits, stiff family photos, children with pets. But at the bottom of the box, she found something that made her breath catch. A strip of 4 photos, the kind taken in old-fashioned photo booths. Black and white, slightly blurred around the edges. In each frame was a young woman sitting beside a man. The woman was unmistakably Allison, same eyes, same smile, same small birthmark near her left eyebrow. But the clothes were different. The hair was shorter than she'd ever worn it, and the man beside her was a complete stranger. "How much for this?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The old man squinted at the photo strip. "Don't remember putting that in there," he said. $5. Allison paid and walked away quickly, the photo strip burning a hole in her pocket. It wasn't possible. She had never taken those photos. She had never met that man. Yet there she was, smiling beside him, frame after frame. Back home, Allison spread the photos on her kitchen table. She examined them with a magnifying glass, looking for signs of tampering or digital manipulation. There were none. The paper was old, the edges worn. This was no recent fabrication. She called her mother, careful to keep her voice casual. "Mom, did I ever have my hair cut really short? Maybe when I was in college." "You short hair," her mother laughed. "Never. You've always been so proud of your long hair. Why do you ask?" "Just wondering," Allison replied, staring at the woman in the photos who was her, and yet not her. That night, Allison couldn't sleep. She kept getting up to look at the photos as if they might change if she left them alone too long. The man in the photos was handsome in a forgettable way, brown hair, pleasant smile, no distinguishing features. He wore a light-colored button-down shirt in all 4 frames. His arm was around her shoulders. They looked comfortable together, happy. The next morning, Allison called in sick to work for the first time in years. She drove to the town library and spent hours going through yearbooks and local newspapers, searching for the man's face. Nothing. Over the next few days, she showed the photos to close friends, careful to frame it as a curiosity rather than the growing obsession it was becoming. No one recognized the man. No one could explain how Allison appeared in photos she had never taken. A week after finding the photo strip, Allison noticed a car she didn't recognize parked across the street from her house. A dark sedan, nondescript. It was there when she left for work in the morning and still there when she returned in the evening. On the 3rd day, she wrote down the license plate number and called the police. Officer Daniel Reed came to take her statement. He was young, new to the force, eager to help. He explained that the car was registered to a rental company in Boston. "Is there anyone who might have a reason to watch your house, Ms. Mercer?" he asked, his notebook open. Allison hesitated, then showed him the photo strip. "I found these at the Harvest Festival. That's me in the photos, but I've never taken them. I've never met that man." Officer Reed studied the photos with a frown. "This does look like you," he admitted. "When were these taken?" "That's just it. They couldn't have been taken. Not of me anyway." Allison's voice trembled slightly. "Someone is pretending to be me, or I don't know." Officer Reed promised to look into the rental car and to check missing persons reports for anyone matching the description of the man in the photos. He left Allison with his card and instructions to call if anything else unusual happened. That night, Allison dreamed of photo booths and flashing lights. She woke to the sound of her phone ringing. It was 3:17 a.m. "Hello," she answered, voice thick with sleep. There was silence on the other end, then a soft click. Allison sat up, fully awake now. Outside her window, the street was empty. No dark sedan, no movement in the shadows, just the quiet of a small town at night. The next morning, Officer Reed called with information about the rental car. It had been rented 3 weeks ago by a woman named Claire Dawson from Springfield. When they contacted the rental company, they discovered the credit card used was stolen, the address provided non-existent. "We're taking this seriously," Officer Reed assured her. "I've increased patrols in your neighborhood, and I'd like to install a temporary camera across from your house, if that's all right with you." Allison agreed, grateful for his concern but increasingly uneasy. Why would someone go to such lengths? What did the photos mean? Later that day, while grading papers at her kitchen table, Allison's phone pinged with an email notification. The sender was unknown, the subject line empty. With a growing sense of dread, she opened it. There was no message, just an attachment, another photo. This one recent, digital. It showed Allison standing at her classroom window just that morning, looking out at the playground. The angle suggested it had been taken from the trees beyond the school property. Allison's hands shook as she called Officer Reed. Within 20 minutes, he and another officer were at her door. They took the photo, checked her house for signs of intrusion, and asked detailed questions about her routine, her relationships, anyone who might hold a grudge. "I don't understand," Allison said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just a teacher. I don't have enemies. Why would someone do this?" The officers had no answers, only precautions. Don't stay alone. Vary your routine. Be aware of your surroundings. That night, Allison stayed with her parents. The next day, she returned to work, jumping at shadows, watching the tree line. 3 days later, a small package arrived at the school office, addressed to Allison. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 6 words typed in the center. "Do you remember us yet, Allison?" And beneath it, another photo strip. Different poses, different clothes, but the same 2 people, Allison and the unknown man. The school went into lockdown. Police scoured the building and grounds. Security footage showed a courier service delivering the package, but the sender information was false. Detective Sandra Martinez took over the case, specializing in stalking and harassment. She sat across from Allison in a small conference room at the police station, the photo strips laid out between them. "Tell me everything again," she said, "from the beginning." Allison recounted finding the first photo strip, the surveillance, the email, the package. Detective Martinez listened without interruption, her dark eyes intent. "I think it's time we consider the possibility that these photos are real," she said finally. "But they can't be," Allison protested. "I've never taken them. I've never met that man." "Not that you remember," Detective Martinez said gently, "but memory is fragile. Is it possible there's a period of your life you don't recall? An accident, perhaps, medication that might have affected your memory?" Allison shook her head, then paused. "There was. In my sophomore year of college, I was in a car accident. Nothing serious, just a concussion. I was out of classes for 2 weeks." "And your hair, could it have been short then?" "I suppose it's possible," Allison admitted. "I don't have many photos from that time." Detective Martinez nodded. "I'm going to pursue 2 tracks. First, we'll continue treating this as a stalking case. Your safety is our priority. Second, I'm going to try to identify the man in these photos. If he's real, he might have answers. The next few days passed in a blur of police interviews and precautions. Allison moved in with her parents temporarily. A patrol car sat outside their house at night. Friends and colleagues rallied around her, offering support and speculation in equal measure. Then, exactly 2 weeks after finding the first photo strip, Allison received a text message from an unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Park, 7 p.m. Come alone or I disappear forever. No police. I have the answers you want. David." Allison stared at the message for a long time. David. The name meant nothing to her. She should call Detective Martinez, she knew this, but the promise of answers was too tempting. After 2 weeks of fear and confusion, she wanted this to end. At 6:45 p.m., Allison parked her car at Riverside Park. The autumn sun was setting, casting long shadows across the empty playground and walking paths. She had told no one where she was going. At precisely 7 p.m., a man emerged from the trees at the edge of the park. Even from a distance, she recognized him, the man from the photos. He walked slowly toward her, hands visible at his sides. As he drew closer, Allison searched his face for any hint of familiarity. There was none. "Hello, Allison," he said. His voice was soft, with a slight accent she couldn't place. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What do you want from me?" The man, David, gestured to a nearby bench. "May we sit? It's a long story." Reluctantly, Allison sat, maintaining distance between them. "9 years ago," David began, "you were not in a car accident. That's what they told you afterward, but it wasn't true." He spoke slowly, watching her reaction. "You were part of a research study at Grayson Neurological Institute. Voluntary, paid, memory manipulation techniques for trauma victims." Allison felt cold despite the warm evening. "That's not possible. I never participated in any study." "You did, we both did. That's how we met." David reached into his pocket and produced a small, worn ID card. It showed his face, younger, alongside the Grayson Institute logo. "I was a research assistant. You were subject 27A." "If this is true," Allison said, struggling to keep her voice steady, "why don't I remember any of it?" "Because the procedure worked too well," David said simply. "It wasn't supposed to erase entire weeks of memory, just specific traumatic events. But in your case, everything from that period was wiped clean, including me." "The photos were taken during the study. Between sessions, we became close." His expression softened with the memory. "When you didn't remember me afterward, I was told not to contact you, that it might cause psychological damage. For years, I respected that." "Why now?" Allison asked. "Why come back after all this time?" David looked away. "The Institute is being investigated. Unethical practices. Some subjects experienced long-term effects, nightmares, flashbacks, unexplained anxiety. I needed to warn you, and selfishly, I wanted to know if anything remained, any fragment of memory of us." Allison stared at him, this stranger who claimed to know her, who had been watching her, frightening her. "You could have just approached me normally, explained, instead of all this psychological torture." "I tried," David said, 3 times over the past month. Each time you looked right through me. No recognition at all. The photos were a last resort. I thought they might trigger something." "They didn't," Allison said flatly. "They just terrified me." As the sun disappeared completely, leaving them in the growing darkness of evening, Allison stood. I'm going to call Detective Martinez now. You're going to tell her everything you just told me. If you're lying, I'll press charges for stalking and harassment. If you're telling the truth." She paused. "If you're telling the truth, I still don't know you, and I don't want to." David nodded slowly. "I understand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for frightening you. That was never my intention." As Allison reached for her phone, a sudden flash of memory stopped her. The smell of coffee and antiseptic, a white room, David's voice reading something aloud as she drifted to sleep. Just a fragment, there and gone in an instant, but enough to make her hand tremble. "What did you read to me?" she asked, the question surprising even herself. "In the white room, you would read while I fell asleep." David's eyes widened. "Keats," he said softly. "Ode to a Nightingale. It was your favorite." The investigation that followed uncovered the truth bit by bit. The Grayson Neurological Institute had indeed conducted memory manipulation studies from 2012 to 2015. Allison had been a participant for 3 weeks during her sophomore year of college. The car accident story had been provided as a cover. Most of the Institute's records had been destroyed when the facility closed in 2020, following financial irregularities and ethical concerns. But enough remained to corroborate David's account. Detective Martinez found 11 other former subjects living within a 100-mile radius. Some, like Allison, had no memory of their participation. Others remembered fragments. 3 reported recurring nightmares and unexplained phobias that began after their involvement. No charges were filed against David. His methods had been misguided, but his concerns proved legitimate. Several former subjects, once identified, were found to be experiencing subtle neurological symptoms that might be linked to the procedures they underwent. As for Allison, she never fully recovered her memories of those 3 weeks. The photo strips remained a curiosity, images of a version of herself she couldn't access. She kept them in a small box along with the articles about Grayson Institute and her own medical records from that time. Sometimes when she can't sleep, she finds herself thinking about identity and memory. How much of who we are exists in the stories we remember about ourselves, and how much remains when those stories are taken away. And sometimes, very rarely, she dreams of a white room, the smell of coffee and antiseptic, and a voice reading poetry as she drifts away. In the morning, these dreams fade like mist, leaving behind only the vague sense that there are parts of herself she may never fully know. Crime 3. Rebecca Miller had always known something was off about the Patterson house at 1423 Sycamore Drive. She'd lived across the street for 15 years, watching the quiet family come and go. Thomas Patterson, a lanky man with thinning hair and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, rarely spoke to neighbors. His wife Ellen was even more of a ghost, slipping between house and car, usually wearing oversized sunglasses regardless of the weather. Their daughter, Melissa, now 22, had been the only one who occasionally broke the family's strange isolation, sometimes sitting on the front porch swing during summer evenings. It was late October 2023 when Rebecca first noticed the absence. The Pattersons' gray Toyota hadn't moved in days. The porch light, which Ellen religiously turned on at dusk, remained dark for 3 consecutive nights. On the 4th day, Rebecca decided to check on them. "I just knocked, no one answered," she later told Detective James Harmon, "but I could have sworn I heard something inside, like scraping." The maple trees lining Sycamore Drive were shedding their leaves when the first patrol car pulled up to the Patterson house. Officer Danielle Cruz approached the front door. noting nothing immediately unusual except for a stack of untouched newspapers on the front step. The blinds were drawn tight across every window. She knocked firmly, announced herself, waited the standard interval, then tried the door. It opened. Inside, everything appeared normal, almost theatrically so. The living room furniture sat perfectly arranged, surfaces dusted, a vase of fresh flowers on the coffee table. Officer Cruz called out again as she moved through the house. The kitchen was immaculate, she noted in her report. Not a dish in the sink. The refrigerator was stocked with fresh food, nothing expired. When she reached the upstairs hallway, Officer Cruz observed 4 doors, 3 open, 1 closed. The master bedroom appeared undisturbed, bed made with hospital corners. A sparse guest room contained only a desk and chair. Melissa's room showed signs of recent occupancy, a laptop on the bed, a half-empty glass of water on the nightstand. The 4th door wouldn't open. Not locked, glued shut along the frame. Officer Cruz called for backup. When Detective Harmon arrived, he examined the sealed door with mounting concern. The adhesive was industrial strength, professionally applied in a perfect continuous line around the entire frame. This wasn't impulsive. This was methodical. Someone took their time with this, Harmon said, running his finger along the hardened border. This is hours of work. They scraped through it carefully, the process taking nearly 40 minutes. When the door finally gave way, the room revealed itself in stages as their flashlight beams swept across it. Unlike the rest of the house, this room, clearly once another bedroom, appeared untouched, pristine in its arrangement. A writing desk positioned precisely against one wall, curtains hanging with geometric precision. Everything dusted, aligned, almost obsessively so. Except for the mattress in the center of the room. It was soaked in something dark and sticky, dried to a deep maroon, and carved into the wooden headboard in tight, controlled letters, "She deserved it." The following days unfolded in a methodical parade of evidence collection and neighbor interviews. No one had seen the Patterson family in at least a week. Ellen's sister in Michigan hadn't heard from her in nearly a month, though she mentioned this wasn't unusual. Ellen withdrew years ago, the sister explained over the phone. After Melissa's twin died, she just faded. This was the first mention of a second child. When pressed, the sister grew hesitant. Melanie, she died when the girls were 14, an accident at home. Thomas found her at the bottom of the stairs, broken neck. Ellen was never the same. The investigation shifted. Hospital records confirmed the death of Melanie Patterson 8 years prior, ruled accidental. Melissa, her identical twin, had been away at a friend's house when it happened. Forensics confirmed the substance on the mattress was human blood, and a lot of it enough that survival would be unlikely. DNA testing matched it to Ellen Patterson, but there was no body. Thomas and Melissa Patterson remained missing. Detective Harmon developed a theory as evidence accumulated. The sealed room had once belonged to Melanie. After her death, the family had preserved it, possibly as a shrine, until something changed the delicate psychological balance of the household. Rebecca Miller came forward with another observation. 2 weeks before they disappeared, I saw Thomas and Melissa arguing on the front lawn. I'd never seen anything like it from them. She was screaming at him, saying something like, "I know what you did." He grabbed her arm, not violently, but firmly, and they went inside. School records revealed more. Melissa had been an exceptional student who abruptly declined after her sister's death. Her high school counselor had noted concerns about her home environment, particularly her relationship with her father, but no action had been taken. She told me once that her house felt like a museum, the counselor recalled. Said she couldn't breathe there, that her father insisted everything stay exactly as it was the day Melanie died. Cell phone records placed Thomas's phone at a remote hiking trail in the Cascades 3 days after the last confirmed sighting of the family. Dogs tracked his scent to the edge of a ravine, but the area was vast, densely forested, and searches revealed nothing conclusive. Then came the package. 6 weeks into the investigation, the local newspaper received a handwritten letter postmarked from a town 300 miles away. Inside was a USB drive and a note, the truth about Melanie. The video on the drive showed Melissa Patterson, clearly recording herself in a motel room. Her resemblance to the teenage photos of her dead sister was unsettling. "I was Melanie," she began, her voice steady. 8 years ago, Dad came home early and found us experimenting with Mom's sleeping pills. He got so angry, we fought at the top of the stairs. He pushed me, he didn't mean to, but I fell. When he came down and found I was still breathing, he panicked. He told Melissa he'd accidentally killed me. She agreed to switch places to become me. We were identical, no one would know." The confession continued, detailing years of living as her sister, watching her mother sink into depression, enduring her father's controlling behavior stemming from guilt. "Mom figured it out eventually. She found my old diary last month, confronted Dad. I came home and found her in Melanie's room, my real room, with the truth finally out. Dad was there. There was so much blood. He said we needed to fix it like we fixed it last time." The video ended with Melissa looking directly into the camera. "By the time anyone sees this, we'll be gone. Some secrets can't stay buried. Check the foundations of the house. That's where you'll find Mom, and probably me too by then." Investigators returned to 1423 Sycamore Drive with ground-penetrating radar. In the crawlspace beneath what had been Melanie's room, they found Ellen Patterson's body, carefully wrapped and concealed within a newly poured concrete section. Thomas and Melissa Patterson remain missing to this day. Sometimes Rebecca Miller sits on her front porch and stares at the empty house across the street. The FOR sale sign has been there for months, but no one has shown serious interest. "The strangest thing," she told a local reporter recently, "is that sometimes late at night I still see the porch light come on, just for a minute or two, then it goes dark again." Authorities continue to investigate, but the case has grown cold. 2 deaths confirmed, 2 disappearances unexplained, and 1 room once sealed with glue that finally gave up its secret, though perhaps not all of them. Some residents of Sycamore Drive claim that on particularly quiet nights, they can hear scraping sounds coming from the empty Patterson house, like someone still trying to open a door that doesn't want to be opened. Crime 4, it wasn't the pipes, it wasn't the vents. The sound came only when she stood in front of her bathroom mirror. A whisper, low and panicked, she finally pressed her ear to the glass. The voice said her name, and then asked, "Why did you leave me here?" Emily Caldwell had always been the responsible one. Growing up in Millbrook, Massachusetts, a town just small enough that people recognized your face but not quite small enough to know your business, she had maintained a perfect attendance record through high school. Her friends described her as methodical, someone who color-coded her planner and arrived 15 minutes early to every appointment. At 32, Emily worked as an accountant at a local firm. lived alone in a modest two-bedroom house she had inherited from her grandmother, and called her mother every Sunday at exactly 7 p.m. She was a creature of habit, her mother, Margaret Caldwell, would later tell investigators. When she didn't call that Sunday in October, I knew something was wrong. Emily wouldn't just forget. October in Millbrook brought a particular kind of chill, the kind that settled into the bones of the old New England houses and whispered through the gaps in poorly sealed windows. Emily had mentioned to colleagues that she'd been hearing strange noises in her house, but old houses make noises. Everyone said so. She'd laughed it off. The last time I saw her was Friday, October 12th, said Diane Miller, Emily's closest friend and coworker. We had lunch together. She seemed distracted, kept checking her phone. When I asked if everything was okay, she said something about having trouble sleeping. Said she kept hearing whispers in her bathroom at night. Emily had been renovating that bathroom, a project she'd started in early September. The house had belonged to her grandmother, Eliza Caldwell, who had passed away 3 years prior. The bathroom still had the original fixtures from the 1960s, pink tile, an outdated vanity, and a large mirror that took up almost an entire wall. She hated that mirror, Diane recalled. Said it gave her the creeps, but she hadn't gotten around to replacing it yet. The renovation was supposed to start with the bathtub and toilet. The contractor Emily had hired, Thomas Bennett, was scheduled to remove the old bathtub on Monday, October 15th. When he arrived at 8:30 a.m. and received no answer at the door, he called Emily's cell phone. No answer. He had a key. Emily had given him one for the renovation, so he let himself in. The house was quiet, too quiet, Bennett later testified. I called out her name a few times, nothing. I figured maybe she'd left early for work, but her car was still in the driveway. That's when I got a bad feeling. Bennett made his way through the house, calling Emily's name. In the kitchen, he found her coffee mug half full, stone cold. Her bedroom was undisturbed, the bed made with hospital corners. It was the bathroom that made him call 911. The mirror was wrong, he told police, struggling to find the right words. It was completely fogged up like after a hot shower, but it wasn't damp to the touch, and there were words written in it, just two, "Find me." Detective Sarah Lowell arrived at the scene 30 minutes later. By then, the fog on the mirror had dissipated and the message was gone. Bennett insisted on what he'd seen, but without evidence, it was noted in the report as a potential stress reaction. We didn't find any immediate signs of foul play, Detective Lowell recounted. No broken windows, no forced entry. Her purse was on the kitchen counter with her wallet, ID, credit cards all intact. Her phone was plugged in by her bedside. It looked like she had simply vanished. The initial theory was that Emily had left voluntarily. Perhaps a mental health crisis, a spontaneous trip, something to explain her sudden absence. But as days turned into weeks, this theory began to unravel. Emily's bank accounts showed no activity after October 13th. Her passport was still in her desk drawer. Her medication for mild anxiety remained in the bathroom cabinet, one pill missing from the daily dispenser for Sunday, October 14th, the day she disappeared. People don't just evaporate, Margaret Caldwell told reporters a month after her daughter's disappearance. Something happened to Emily. She wouldn't just leave. The investigation continued, but leads were scarce. Emily's phone records showed nothing unusual. Her last call had been to a local pizza place on Saturday evening. Her last text message was to Diane, "Just heard it again, clearer this time. I'm going to record it tonight." No recording was ever found on her phone or computer. In November, a new detective was assigned to the case. Detective Marcus Rodriguez had a reputation for solving cold cases, for finding patterns where others saw coincidences. The first thing that struck me about Emily's case was the mirror, Rodriguez explained. Bennett's statement about the fogged message bothered me, so I did some digging into the history of the house. What Rodriguez discovered sent a chill through the investigation team. Emily's grandmother, Eliza Caldwell, had not been the original owner of the house. She had purchased it in 1962 from the estate of the previous owner, a woman named Emily Richardson, who had disappeared without a trace in 1961. Same first name, similar age, same house. Both disappeared in October. Rodriguez listed the similarities. And there was one more connection. Both women had recently been renovating the same bathroom. Rodriguez obtained the police reports from 1961. Emily Richardson's case had gone cold, but one detail stood out. Her contractor had reported seeing a message in the bathroom mirror the day after she vanished. The message reportedly said, "She's with me now." The investigation took a darker turn when Rodriguez ordered a careful examination of the bathroom. Behind the large wall mirror, they found something unexpected. A second mirror, older, with an ornate silver frame mounted directly to the wall. It appeared that when Eliza Caldwell had renovated in the 1960s, rather than removing the original mirror, she had simply installed a larger, more modern one over it. "We removed both mirrors," Rodriguez explained, "and that's when we found the cavity." Behind the wall where both mirrors had hung was a small space, not quite the size of a closet but larger than expected, a space that shouldn't have existed according to the house plans. And inside that space they found personal items, a hairbrush with blonde hairs that matched Emily Caldwell's DNA, a woman's watch from the 1960s, and a journal. The journal belonged to neither Emily. It was signed Eleanor Blackwood, 1937, and detailed the woman's growing fear of her own reflection. "I see her watching me," one entry read. "When I turn away, she doesn't. When I sleep, she whispers. She says there's a way we can be together, that all I need to do is touch the glass while she speaks my name." The final entry, dated October 15, 1937, simply stated, "Tonight I'll answer her call. I want to see what's on the other side." Eleanor Blackwood was the original owner of the house. She, too, had disappeared without a trace. While the search for Emily Caldwell continues, investigators have sealed off the bathroom. The mirrors remain in police evidence, and ground-penetrating radar has been scheduled to examine the walls and foundation of the house. "We don't have answers yet," Detective Rodriguez admitted in his latest press conference. "But we have questions now that we didn't have before, and in cases like this, asking the right questions is how we find the truth." Margaret Caldwell still keeps her phone close every Sunday at 7 p.m. "Sometimes," she confessed, "I think I hear it ring, but when I answer, there's just a whisper, too faint to make out the words. I'm afraid it might be Emily, and I'm afraid of what she might be trying to tell me." The case remains open. The mirrors remain in darkness, covered with cloth in the evidence room. And in Millbrook, people have begun to cover their mirrors at night. "Just in case." Crime 5, she kept receiving handwritten letters, same handwriting, same envelope, always with no return address, all addressed to Beatrice, begging her to stop, to confess, to return what she took. She looked up every Beatrice who had ever lived in the building. There were none. Morgan Willis lived alone in apartment 3B of the Oakwood Heights complex in Bellingham, Washington. At 32, she had settled into a comfortable routine as a research librarian at the county's main branch. Colleagues described her as methodical, reserved, with a quiet intelligence that made her exceptional at her job. She preferred the company of books to people, finding solace in organization and knowledge rather than social gatherings. Her apartment reflected this orderly nature, minimalist decor, books arranged by subject and author, everything in its designated place. Morgan had moved to Bellingham 3 years earlier, seeking a fresh start after her mother's passing from early onset Alzheimer's. She had spent 6 years as her mother's caregiver, watching helplessly as memories slipped away, leaving behind a shell of the woman who raised her. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday in March. The weather had been unusually cold that spring, with fog rolling in from Bellingham Bay each morning, shrouding the city in a dreamlike haze. Morgan found the cream-colored envelope slipped under her door when she returned from work. No postmark, no stamp, hand-delivered. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the handwriting precise yet somehow urgent. Beatrice, please stop pretending. I know what you did. I know what you took from me. You can't hide behind silence forever. I need you to acknowledge what happened. Well, Morgan initially assumed it was delivered to the wrong apartment. She checked the envelope again, but it clearly read apartment 3B. She placed the letter on her kitchen counter, intending to ask her neighbors about it the next day. The second letter arrived 3 days later. Beatrice, your silence speaks volumes. Do you think I don't recognize you? The color of your hair may have changed, but your eyes give you away. They always have. Return what belongs to me, and perhaps we can both find peace. Well, now concerned, Morgan approached her building manager, Raymond Pearson, a retired postal worker who had managed Oakwood Heights for nearly 15 years. She showed him the letters and asked if a Beatrice had ever lived in her apartment. Not since I've been here, Raymond told her, adjusting his reading glasses to examine the letters. But this building's been around since the 60s. Let me check the old records. The search revealed no Beatrice had ever occupied apartment 3B, nor any unit in the building, according to available records. Raymond suggested it might be kids playing pranks or perhaps someone confused about which building they were delivering to. But Morgan couldn't shake her unease. Something about the handwriting, the pressure applied to certain letters, the slight rightward tilt, suggested genuine emotion behind the words. The letters continued arriving, one every few days, each more desperate, more insistent than the last. Beatrice, I saw you watching me from your window yesterday. You think I don't notice? The weight of this secret is crushing me. Is that what you want, to destroy me completely? Haven't you taken enough? Well, Morgan began photographing each letter before placing them in a folder. She started taking different routes home, watching for anyone following her. She found herself studying the faces of strangers on the street, wondering if one of them was Elle. At work, her concentration suffered. Colleagues noticed her checking the windows, startling at sudden movements. When asked, she brushed it off as insomnia, not wanting to seem paranoid. On April 12th, after receiving the 8th letter, Morgan finally went to the police. Officer Nathan Reeves listened patiently as she explained the situation, spreading the letters across his desk. Have you noticed anyone unusual around your building? He asked, examining the handwriting. Anyone paying particular attention to you? No, Morgan replied, but I feel watched all the time now. Officer Reeves took copies of the letters and filed a report, but without explicit threats, there wasn't much they could do. He suggested installing a camera facing her door, keeping a log of any unusual occurrences, and contacting them immediately if the letters became threatening. The next letter was different. It arrived with a small photograph, faded and creased from handling. It showed two young women, perhaps in their early 20s, arms linked, smiling on what appeared to be a dock or pier. One had long dark hair, the other blonde waves that caught the sunlight. Their faces were partially obscured by shadows. Beatrice, do you remember this day, before everything changed, before you betrayed me? I still keep this photo to remind myself who you really are beneath the act. No matter how deeply you bury the truth, it always finds its way to the surface. Well, Morgan studied the photograph for hours, searching for anything familiar. The setting could have been any waterfront in any coastal town. The women were strangers to her, yet something about the blonde woman's posture, the slight tilt of her head, the way she held her shoulders, triggered an inexplicable feeling of déjà vu. That night Morgan dreamed of water, dark, endless water stretching to the horizon. She was swimming, searching for something beneath the surface, lungs burning for air. When she woke, gasping, her pillowcase was damp with tears. The next day, Morgan called in sick to work and began researching missing persons cases in Bellingham and surrounding areas. She looked for any mention of a Beatrice or someone with the initial L. The search yielded too many results to be useful. She expanded her investigation, creating a timeline of when the letters began and what might have triggered them. Had she changed her routine recently, met anyone new, seen something she wasn't supposed to see? Morgan's mind raced with possibilities, each more unlikely than the last. 2 weeks later, the letters stopped suddenly. Days passed with nothing slipped under her door. The silence was somehow more unsettling than the messages had been. Then, on a rainy Sunday morning in May, Morgan found a small package outside her apartment. Inside was a tarnished silver locket on a thin chain and a note. Beatrice, this belonged to my sister. You took her from me that night at the lake. The police may have believed your story, but I know the truth. I've found you now after all these years. Look at the locket, Beatrice. Look inside and remember what you did. Lydia. With trembling fingers, Morgan opened the locket. Inside was a tiny scrap of newspaper, carefully folded to fit the small space. She unfolded it to find an obituary clipping, yellowed with age. Beatrice Elaine Crane, 24, drowned Friday night in Crescent Lake in what authorities have ruled an accidental death. Witnesses report she was swimming after dark with a friend who attempted to save her when she began struggling in the water. She is survived by her parents, Richard and Catherine Crane, and her sister, Lydia. Services will be held. The rest was cut off. Morgan's hands shook so violently that she dropped the locket. The name Lydia finally gave her something concrete to search for. She spent hours online until she found it, a news article from 15 years ago about the drowning of Beatrice Crane at Crescent Lake, some 50 miles north of Bellingham. The article mentioned that Beatrice had been swimming with a friend, Miranda Sanders, who reported that Beatrice had suddenly panicked in the water and gone under. Despite Miranda's attempts to save her, Beatrice drowned. The death was ruled accidental, though Beatrice's blood alcohol level had been elevated. Morgan searched for more information about Miranda Sanders, but found little beyond mentions in the drowning case. No social media presence, no current address. It was as if she had disappeared. With growing dread, Morgan pulled out her driver's license. Morgan Willis, born December 8, 1992. But as she stared at her own photograph, doubts began to surface. The face looking back at her, was it truly hers? She rushed to the bathroom mirror, studying her features. Green eyes, auburn hair cut in a practical bob. But underneath her appearance, was there someone else, someone named Miranda? The headaches began that night. Intense pain accompanied by flashes of unfamiliar images, a lakeside cabin, laughter echoing over water, a blonde woman reaching toward her, panic in her eyes. 3 days later, Officer Reeves called. They'd identified the sender of the letters. Lydia Crane had been living in Bellingham for just over a month, having moved from Portland, Oregon. They brought her in for questioning after Morgan filed the report about the locket. "She believes you're Miranda Sanders," Officer Reeves explained. "The woman who was with her sister when she drowned. She's been tracking various women named Miranda across the Pacific Northwest for years, convinced that each one is hiding under a false identity." "But I'm not Miranda," Morgan insisted. "I've never been to Crescent Lake. I grew up in Eugene with my mother." "We know," he assured her. "Lydia Crane suffers from delusional disorder. She's been hospitalized twice before for similar behavior. Her family has been contacted and she'll be receiving treatment." The explanation should have brought relief, but something still nagged at Morgan. That night she called her Aunt Claire, her mother's sister, and only remaining family. "Aunt Claire, this is going to sound strange, but did Mom ever mention someone named Beatrice or Miranda?" The pause on the other end stretched too long. "Why are you asking about this now?" Claire finally responded, her voice unnaturally controlled. "Please, I need to know." Another long pause, then, "Your mother's maiden name was Sanders. Before her illness progressed, during one of her confused episodes, she called you Miranda several times. I assumed it was just the Alzheimer's mixing up names." Morgan's blood ran cold. Did she ever explain why? "No, dear, but there was a box of her things I sent you after the funeral. Old photographs, journals. Did you ever go through it?" Morgan hadn't. The box remained sealed in her storage closet, too painful to open, too precious to discard. That night, Morgan finally opened the box. Beneath layers of memorabilia, she found a small leather journal with her mother's handwriting. The entries were sporadic, dating back to when her mother would have been in her 20s. Morgan flipped through until a name caught her eye. "June 15, 1992. Miranda still won't speak about what happened at the lake. The doctors say the traumatic amnesia might be permanent. Perhaps it's a blessing. How could anyone live with such a memory? I've decided we'll move after the baby comes, somewhere far from here where no one knows our story. My sister thinks I'm making a mistake by hiding the truth, but she didn't see Miranda's face that night when they pulled Beatrice's body from the water. Some truths are too heavy to carry." Morgan closed the journal, her mind spinning. The baby mentioned would have been her, born December 8, 1992, 6 months after this entry. Was it possible? Could her mother have been Miranda Sanders? Had she changed her name, created a new identity after whatever happened that night at Crescent Lake? In the bottom of the box, wrapped in tissue paper, Morgan found a tarnished silver locket, identical to the one Lydia Crane had left at her door. Inside was a faded photograph of 2 young women standing on a dock, arms linked, faces partially shadowed by the setting sun. Morgan never contacted Lydia Crane, never confirmed what she had discovered about her mother's past, about her own origins. Some truths, as her mother wrote, are too heavy to carry. But sometimes, late at night, she dreams of water. Dark water and a hand reaching toward her, fingers stretching, slipping away beneath the surface. And in those moments between sleeping and waking, she wonders whose memories these really are. Crime 6. In the quiet town of Millfield, Connecticut, the Dawson house stood as a testament to New England charm. Built in 1892, the Victorian home with its gabled roof and wraparound porch had housed generations of families. When Rachel and Mark Henderson purchased it in the spring of 2015, they were drawn to its character, its history, and the way sunlight fell through the stained glass windows of the foyer in the late afternoon. Rachel, a 34-year-old librarian with a passion for historical preservation, had always dreamed of restoring an old home. Mark, an architect by trade, shared her vision. They spent their weekends stripping wallpaper, refinishing hardwood floors, and carefully bringing the Dawson house back to its original glory. The couple planned to start a family soon, and the 4-bedroom home offered plenty of space for their future children. 6 months after moving in, Rachel discovered she was pregnant. Their renovation plans shifted to focus on creating a nursery in the bedroom adjacent to the master suite. But it was during this period that Rachel began to notice small things at first. A cold spot in the upstairs hallway, the persistent smell of lilacs in certain rooms, even in winter, the sound of footsteps when Mark was away on business trips. Old houses settle, Mark would tell her with a reassuring smile. The pipes make noise, the wood contracts and expands. Rachel tried to believe him. She blamed her imagination, her hormones, the anxiety of impending motherhood. But in her 7th month of pregnancy, she woke in the night to the distinct sound of a music box playing somewhere in the house. Mark heard nothing. When she followed the melody downstairs, it stopped abruptly. On a rainy Tuesday in October, 15 days before her due date, Rachel called Mark at work. Her voice trembled as she described hearing a baby crying, not from outside, not from a neighbor's house, but from somewhere within their walls. Mark came home early that day and held her as she cried, attributing the sounds to her exhaustion and the stress of pregnancy. 3 days later, Rachel gave birth to Emma Grace Henderson, 6 pounds, 8 ounces, with a tuft of dark hair and her father's dimpled chin. The baby was healthy. The delivery was without complications. The new parents brought their daughter home to the freshly painted nursery with its mobile of felt woodland creatures that Rachel had sewn by hand. For 2 weeks, life settled into the rhythm of new parenthood. Feedings at odd hours, diaper changes, the hypnotic pattern of rocking Emma to sleep while humming lullabies. Then on November 12, 2015, Mark woke to find Rachel's side of the bed empty. The baby monitor on the nightstand showed Emma sleeping soundly in her crib. He assumed Rachel had gone downstairs for a glass of water or to warm a bottle. When 30 minutes passed without her return, Mark began searching the house. The kitchen was empty. The living room was undisturbed. Rachel's car remained in the driveway. Her phone sat charging on the counter. Her wallet lay in her purse by the door. The only thing missing was Rachel herself. Detective Amelia Carter arrived at the Henderson home at 7:43 a.m., responding to Mark's frantic call. A 20-year veteran of the Millfield Police Department, Carter had investigated missing persons cases before, but something about this one immediately felt different. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, no logical explanation for how a nursing mother would leave her 2-week-old baby without taking any of her belongings. "When was the last time you saw your wife?" Detective Carter asked, watching as Mark paced the living room, Emma cradled against his chest. "When we went to bed around 11, he replied. "She got up once around 2 to feed Emma, then I fell back asleep." The detective noted the dark circles under Mark's eyes. the tremor in his hands as he stroked his daughter's back. She recognized the genuine panic of a man whose world had suddenly tilted on its axis. The community of Millfield rallied around Mark and baby Emma. Volunteers organized search parties that combed the woods behind the house. Local businesses displayed Rachel's photo in their windows. The regional news ran stories asking for information about the missing woman. Mark's parents moved into the guest bedroom to help with Emma. They took turns with night feedings, diaper changes, and the endless tasks of newborn care. Mark continued to search for Rachel, checking hospitals, shelters, posting flyers in neighboring towns. Detective Carter pursued every lead, interviewed every potential witness, and found nothing. 2 months after Rachel's disappearance, Mark's father Frank decided to address a persistent plumbing issue in the basement. Water sometimes pooled near the eastern wall after heavy rain. Frank, a retired contractor, suspected a crack in the foundation. He began tapping the wall, listening for hollow spots that might indicate water damage behind the brickwork. What he found instead was a section of wall that sounded different from the rest. The bricks appeared newer, the mortar a slightly different shade. Frank retrieved a sledgehammer from the garage and carefully began removing bricks from the center of the suspicious area. The first brick came loose easily, then the second. By the third, Frank could see there was a space behind the wall. He worked faster, creating an opening large enough to shine a flashlight through. What the beam illuminated made him drop the light with a strangled cry. Detective Carter arrived at the Henderson house 40 minutes later. By then, Frank had removed enough bricks to reveal a hidden room approximately 8 feet square. The space contained a fully set-up nursery, a white wooden crib with yellowed sheets, a rocking chair draped with a hand-knitted blanket, a changing table stocked with cloth diapers long since turned brittle with age. A teddy bear sat propped against the crib's railing. A silver rattle lay on the floor, covered in decades of dust. And there, carved into the wooden beam above the crib, were the words, "She never made it upstairs." Forensic teams worked for days processing the hidden room. Carbon dating placed the construction of the false wall in the late 1960s. The items in the nursery, the crib, the rocking chair, the baby clothes folded in a dresser drawer, all dated from the same period. Detective Carter's investigation turned to the history of the Dawson house. Between 1963 and 1968, the property had been owned by Dr. Gilbert Dawson and his wife, Alina. Newspaper archives revealed that Alina had been pregnant with their first child in the summer of 1967. In September of that year, Dr. Dawson reported his wife missing. According to his statement, Alina had gone to visit her sister in Boston but never arrived. The case was investigated, but no trace of Alina was ever found. Dr. Dawson sold the house in 1968 and moved to Oregon. He died in 1993 of natural causes, taking whatever secrets he held to his grave. Ground-penetrating radar was used to examine the basement floor and the surrounding property. In December 2015, excavation beneath the concrete slab of the basement revealed human remains. DNA testing confirmed they belonged to Alina Dawson, who had been 8 months pregnant at the time of her death. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head. But the discovery of Alina's remains did nothing to solve the mystery of Rachel Henderson's disappearance. Despite the eerie parallel, 2 pregnant women vanishing from the same house decades apart, no trace of Rachel was found on the property. Mark Henderson and his daughter Emma eventually moved away from Millfield, unable to live in a house haunted by such tragedy. The Dawson house remains empty to this day, its windows boarded up, its gardens overgrown. Local teenagers sometimes dare each other to stand on the porch at midnight or peek through the cracks in the plywood covering the windows. Detective Amelia Carter retired in 2020, the Henderson case still open on her desk. In her personal notes, later found by her successor, she had written, "2 women, 2 nurseries. One was found beneath the house she never left. The other vanished without a trace, both leaving behind the children they never had the chance to raise." The case of Rachel Henderson remains officially unsolved. Some in Millfield whisper about the curse of the Dawson house. Others suggest more mundane explanations, that Rachel, overwhelmed by postpartum depression, simply walked away from her life. A few even cast suspicious glances at Mark, despite the lack of evidence implicating him. But for those familiar with the case, one detail continues to disturb more than any other. When forensic teams were processing the hidden nursery behind the brick wall, they discovered something no one could explain: a Polaroid photograph tucked beneath the mattress in the crib. The picture, dated November 2015, showed Rachel Henderson sleeping, her hand resting protectively over her pregnant belly. Behind her, barely visible in the shadows of the bedroom, stood a figure. The image was too blurry to identify, but carved into the headboard above Rachel's sleeping form were fresh words matching those found in the hidden nursery. She never made it upstairs. To this day, residents of Millfield drive past the abandoned Dawson house with averted eyes, and new mothers in town instinctively hold their babies closer when walking near its overgrown yard. In the silence of night, some claim they can hear the faint melody of a music box playing from somewhere within its walls, a lullaby for children who never grew up, and for mothers who never had the chance to raise them. Crime 7, she was weeding when she tripped over the plastic hose reel. Inside, wrapped in a Ziploc, were 3 cassette tapes and a list of names. She played the first one. A voice whispered, "He told me to dig. I didn't want to. I heard them scream." Emma Peterson had moved to Crestwood, Missouri in early spring of 2007. The modest ranch-style home on Mapleton Drive needed work, but after her divorce, the 42-year-old elementary school librarian was eager for projects to fill her weekends. The previous owners, an elderly couple named Clarence and Martha Dunning, had lived there for nearly 40 years before moving to a retirement community in Arizona. Their garden, once the pride of the neighborhood according to longtime residents, had fallen into disrepair. On a cool Saturday morning in late April, Emma decided to tackle the overgrown backyard. She wore gardening gloves that still had the price tag attached and carried a trowel she'd purchased the night before. The air smelled of fresh soil and distant rain. Birds called to one another from the oak trees that lined the property. Emma felt at peace for the first time in months. She worked methodically, clearing weeds from what once had been a vegetable patch. The repetitive motion was therapeutic: yank, shake off the dirt, toss into the growing pile. Her fingers ached pleasantly, her mind finally quiet after months of ruminating over court dates and division of assets. Around noon, Emma stood to stretch her back. That's when her foot caught on something half buried in the tall grass near the fence line. She stumbled, catching herself before falling completely. Irritated, she turned to see what had tripped her. A faded green plastic garden hose box lay partially exposed, its lid askew. Emma frowned. She'd already found a newer hose coiled neatly in the garage. This one appeared abandoned, the plastic cracked from years of sun exposure. She knelt down to move it out of her way. The box was surprisingly heavy. Emma pried open the lid, expecting to find a tangled hose or forgotten gardening tools. Instead, there was a Ziploc bag, the kind used for freezing food. Inside were 3 cassette tapes, their labels faded but still legible in blue ballpoint pen. Session 1 CD, Session 2 CD, and Session 3 CD. Beneath the tapes was a folded sheet of paper. Emma carefully opened it. The paper was lined, torn from a spiral notebook. On it was a list of names, 7 in total, each followed by dates and locations. The handwriting was cramped but precise. Emma didn't recognize any of the names, but one of the locations was only 2 towns over. Emma sat back on her heels, staring at her discovery. CD Clarence Dunning, the previous homeowner. The rational part of her brain suggested she should simply throw everything away. The tapes were probably nothing old recordings of gardening notes or family memories, but curiosity tugged at her. In her living room, surrounded by half-unpacked moving boxes, Emma found her old Sony Walkman. She'd kept it out of nostalgia, a relic from high school she couldn't quite part with during the purge that followed her divorce. She inserted the first tape labeled Session 1 and pressed play. Static crackled, followed by rustling noises. Then a man cleared his throat. Session 1 with Clarence Dunning, May 3rd, 1992, Dr. Howard Phillips recording. A pause, more rustling. Mr. Dunning, thank you for agreeing to these sessions. Everything you say is confidential. Why don't you start by telling me what's been troubling you? Silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Emma found herself holding her breath. Then another voice, soft and hesitant. He told me to dig. I didn't want to. I heard them scream. Emma's skin prickled. The voice was raspy, elderly. A long exhale followed, as if the speaker had been holding his breath. Who told you to dig, Clarence? The doctor's voice remained calm, professional. He did, the other me, the one that comes at night. Clarence's voice changed subtly, growing firmer. They deserved it, you know, all of them. They saw too much. And what did they see, Clarence? Another long pause, what I really am. Emma stopped the tape, her heart pounding. She glanced outside at the now ominous garden where she'd been happily working just an hour before. The list of names lay on her coffee table. 7 names, 7 dates, 7 locations. With trembling fingers, she reached for her laptop. She opened a search engine and typed the first name from the list, Gregory Wilkins. She added missing and the date listed on the paper, October 17, 1982. The search returned several results. Emma clicked on an archived newspaper article from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. The headline read, "Local man still missing after 3 weeks." The article described Gregory Wilkins, 33, who had disappeared after leaving his shift at Mercy Hospital. His car was found abandoned at Lakeside Park, the location listed next to his name on the paper Emma had found. Emma's mouth went dry. She tried the second name, Melissa Harmon, along with her date and location. Another Hit A nursing student who had vanished while jogging in 1985. The third name yielded similar results. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across her backyard. The garden hose box was still visible from her window, a dark shape against the overgrown grass. Emma closed her laptop and stared at the remaining 2 tapes on her coffee table. Should she continue listening, call the police? What would she even say that she found old tapes suggesting the sweet elderly man who had tended roses might be connected to disappearances decades ago? They'd think she was crazy, or worse, seeking attention. As darkness fell completely, Emma made her decision. She inserted the second tape. Session 2 CD, May 10th, 1992. The doctor's voice again. Clarence, last time you mentioned digging. Can you tell me more about that? The elderly voice responded, clearer now. The garden helps me stay calm. Martha loves the vegetables I grow, says they're the best she's ever tasted. His voice lowered to a whisper. She doesn't know what makes them grow so well. And what does make them grow well, Clarence? A soft chuckle, bone meal, best fertilizer there is. Over the next hour, Emma listened to both remaining tapes. Clarence Dunning never explicitly confessed to murder, but the implications were unmistakable. He spoke of the other Clarence who did things at night, of voices that commanded him, of his special garden where things grew, fed by secrets. The doctor repeatedly tried to get him to elaborate, but Clarence would grow evasive, talking instead about his roses or Martha's cooking. By the time the final tape clicked off, Emma sat motionless in her darkened living room. The house around her fresh start, suddenly felt contaminated. She thought of the vegetables she'd planned to plant, the soil she'd been turning with her bare hands just hours ago. The next morning, Emma called the police. Detective Marcus Townsend arrived, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a notepad worn at the corners. He listened patiently as Emma explained her discovery, examining the tapes and list without touching them. "Miss Peterson, I understand why you're concerned," he said finally, "but these tapes aren't a confession. They're therapy sessions, which means they're protected by doctor-patient confidentiality. And this list," he gestured at the paper, "names, dates, and places without context doesn't constitute evidence." "But the missing persons cases," Emma insisted. "I looked them up, they're real." Detective Townsend nodded. "I'm familiar with some of them. Cold cases, most of them, but without more to go on." He sighed. "Look, I'll make some calls, see if we can locate this Dr. Phillips. Maybe check property records, see if there were any renovations or unusual landscaping done during the Dunnings' time here. But I need to be honest, without physical evidence, this might not go anywhere." As the detective prepared to leave, he paused. "Do you have a forwarding address for the Dunnings in Arizona?" Emma found the information in her closing paperwork. Detective Townsend noted it down, then handed her his card. "Call if you find anything else, and Miss Peterson, maybe hold off on that vegetable garden for now." 3 weeks passed. Emma called Detective Townsend twice, receiving the same answer both times, still looking into it. She couldn't bring herself to work in the yard again. Instead, she spent her weekends researching the names on the list, creating a timeline of disappearances that spanned from 1982 to 1991, all within a 50-mile radius of her new home. Then on a Tuesday evening in May, her doorbell rang. Detective Townsend stood on her porch, accompanied by another officer and a woman in plain clothes who introduced herself as Dr. Reeves from the Forensic Anthropology Department. "We'd like to take a look at your backyard, Miss Peterson," Townsend said quietly. "Ground-penetrating radar, non-invasive. You won't even know we were here." "Did you find something?" Emma asked, her voice barely audible. Townsend exchanged glances with Dr. Reeves. "We located Dr. Phillips. He's retired now, living in Chicago. He remembered Clarence Dunning said he treated him briefly in the early 90s for what he described as dissociative episodes with paranoid features. He discontinued treatment after Clarence stopped showing up." "And Clarence, did you find him?" "That's the thing," Townsend said slowly. "Clarence Dunning died 3 months ago in that Arizona retirement community. Natural causes, but before he died, he wrote a letter to the Phoenix police. They just got around to forwarding it to us last week." He paused. "It was a confession, Miss Peterson. Names, dates, locations, all matching your list." Over the next several days, Emma watched from her kitchen window as teams worked methodically in her backyard. The garden hose box was taken as evidence. Ground-penetrating radar revealed anomalies in the soil, 7 distinct areas that didn't match the surrounding earth. They found no bodies. Clearance had been thorough, according to the forensic team. But they found evidence. A woman's watch identified as belonging to Melissa Harmon, a class ring with Gregory Wilkins' initials, fragments of bone that DNA testing would later link to 3 of the victims. By midsummer, Emma's backyard had been excavated and restored. The story made national news for a week before being replaced by newer tragedies. Martha Dunning, interviewed in her Arizona care facility, appeared genuinely shocked and heartbroken. "I never knew," she repeated to reporters. "The vegetables, I ate them. For years I ate them." Emma eventually sold the house, unable to live with the knowledge of what had happened there. Before leaving, she planted 7 rose bushes in a circle where the vegetable garden had been one for each name on Clarence's list. A memorial, she told herself, though she knew it was something else too, an acknowledgement of how easily darkness could hide beneath the most ordinary surfaces. Sometimes in the quiet moments before sleep, Emma still heard that whispered voice from the first tape. "He told me to dig. I didn't want to." And she wondered about the boundaries between madness and evil, between knowing and choosing not to know. The garden in Crestwood flourished long after she left, the roses growing more vibrant each year, feeding on secrets buried deep below the surface, secrets that had finally found their way into the light. Crime 8, she only went up to check for likes. Instead, she found a long string of paper dolls pinned to the rafters. Each had a name written in pen, and each one was missing a part: arms, legs, heads. The final doll, whole and labeled with her full name. Marla Peterson had always been particular about her home maintenance. At 42, the elementary school librarian lived alone in the historic Craftsman house she'd inherited from her grandmother in Oak Ridge, Minnesota. The 1920s structure required constant attention, especially during the rainy season when the old roof liked to betray its age. It was during the first April rainfall of 2019 when Marla noticed a slight discoloration on her bedroom ceiling. Just a faint darkening, but enough to send her to the pull-down attic stairs that evening after the storm had passed. She'd been meaning to check the roof after winter anyway. The wooden stairs creaked as they always did, a sound Marla had associated with childhood adventures in her grandmother's mysterious upper rooms. But she hadn't been in the attic since moving back 5 years ago. There had never been a reason. Armed with just her phone flashlight, Marla climbed the final step and swept the beam across the dusty space. The air was thick with that particular stillness unique to places seldom disturbed by human presence. Exposed beams crossed overhead, old trunks and boxes clustered in corners, everything exactly as she remembered. Except for what hung from the center beam. At first, Marla thought someone had hung a paper garland, like the kind children make for birthday parties. A string of cut-out figures dangling in the otherwise empty space. But as she stepped closer, swinging her light upward, the frozen moment of recognition lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. They were paper dolls, crude, hand-cut silhouettes linked at the hands. 16 of them in total, pinned to the wooden beam with small thumbtacks. Each doll had writing on it. The first doll was missing its head, cleanly cut away. Written across its chest in black ink, Elaine Murphy, 2010. The second was missing both arms, with Daniel Cooper, 2011, inscribed in the same handwriting. As Marla moved her light down the line, her breath caught in her throat. Each doll represented a person. Each was missing something: legs, arms, a torso, a head. and each had a name and a year, running consecutively from 2010 through 2025. But it was the final doll that caused Marla to drop her phone. The last silhouette in the chain was intact, whole, complete, and written across it in that same meticulous handwriting, Marla Jean Peterson, 2025. Later, Officer Keith Donovan would write in his report that when Marla called 911, she was remarkably calm, almost dissociative, which he noted was unusual but not unprecedented in cases of extreme shock. The investigation into what became known locally as the paper doll case began with identifying the 15 names preceding Marla's on the sinister chain. Detective Sandra Holt, a 20-year veteran of Oak Ridge PD, led the investigation. Her first discovery was unsettling. Elaine Murphy, the first name on the first doll, had been a real person who lived just 3 streets away from Marla's house. More disturbing was that Elaine had disappeared in August 2010, exactly as marked on the paper figure. Her case remained unsolved, though foul play had always been suspected. "The thing that keeps me up at night," Detective Holt later confided to her partner, "is that the doll was missing its head, and we never found Elaine's remains except for skull fragments in Whitewater Creek 6 months after she vanished." Daniel Cooper proved equally real. A college student reported missing in 2011, found 2 weeks later behind an abandoned warehouse. Both arms had been severed post-mortem. The pattern continued with horrifying consistency. 13 more names, 13 more missing persons or murder victims from towns within a 30-mile radius of Oak Ridge. Each body, when found, was missing exactly the parts depicted on their corresponding paper doll. 2 victims remained missing entirely. "What we're dealing with," Holt explained during a closed briefing, her voice steady despite the dark circles under her eyes, "is someone who's been active for 15 years without detection. Someone methodical. Someone who's been watching Marla Peterson and wanted her to know it." For Marla, the weeks following her discovery became a blur of police interviews, increased security measures, and sleepless nights. She couldn't stay in the house, not with what had been found in her attic, so she moved temporarily into the River Bend Hotel downtown while police maintained surveillance on her property. "I keep thinking about my grandmother," Marla told Dr. Leanne Williams, the department psychologist assigned to check in with her regularly. "She died in 2014. The dolls would have been hanging there for years while she was still alive. Did she know? Was she afraid too?" The investigation uncovered that 3 previous owners had briefly lived in Marla's house between her grandmother's death and her inheriting the property. None stayed longer than 8 months. All had moved away suddenly, citing personal reasons or job opportunities elsewhere. None returned phone calls from Detective Holt. The forensic evidence from the attic proved frustratingly minimal. The paper used for the dolls was ordinary construction paper available at any craft store. The thumbtacks were equally common. No fingerprints were found on either, suggesting the maker had worn gloves. The only distinctive element was the handwriting, neat, almost architectural in precision, which matched no samples in law enforcement databases. Whoever did this, forensic analyst Thomas Reed noted, took extraordinary care not to leave traces. These dolls could have been hanging there for years, possibly placed one by one as each event occurred. It was Marla herself who made the connection that shifted the investigation. 3 weeks after moving to the hotel, unable to sleep despite medication, she found herself browsing through old digital photos of her grandmother's house. She'd been thinking about the previous owners, wondering if they too had discovered something disturbing in the house. At 2:17 a.m., she called Detective Holt. "I found something," she said, her voice unnaturally steady. "In the background of a photo taken at my grandmother's 80th birthday, 7 years ago, there's someone I don't recognize." The photo showed Marla's grandmother, Eleanor Peterson, smiling beside her birthday cake in the dining room. Behind her, partially visible through the doorway leading to the kitchen, stood a tall figure in dark clothing. Their face was turned away from the camera, but they were clearly watching the celebration. "That's Ryan Keller," Marla explained. "He was the handyman my grandmother hired for odd jobs. I never met him. I was living in Chicago then, but she mentioned him in her letters. Said he was quiet but reliable, good with his hands." Detective Holt's team found no record of a Ryan Keller working as a handyman in Oak Ridge. No driver's license, no social security number, no tax records. But they did find a Ryan Keller who had attended the same elementary school as Marla back in the 1980s. A boy who, according to former teachers, had been relentlessly bullied, particularly by a group that included a young Marla Peterson. A boy who had disappeared after 6th grade, reportedly moving away with his mother following his father's suicide. A boy who had kept intricate paper dolls in his desk that had disturbed his art teacher enough to make a note in his permanent record. The manhunt for Ryan Keller began immediately, but he seemed to have vanished completely. His last known address, a small apartment above a closed antique store, had been vacated 3 days before the paper dolls were discovered. Left behind was a single room that appeared to have served as a workshop. The walls were covered with newspaper clippings about each of the 15 victims. Detailed maps marked their last known locations and where their remains had been found. And most chillingly, a calendar open to April 2025 with the 17th circled multiple times in red ink. Marla's birthday. 6 months passed. Marla Peterson couldn't return to her grandmother's house, so she sold it to a developer who promptly demolished the structure to build condominiums. She moved to Arizona, changed her name, and tried to begin a new life with constant police protection. Detective Holt remained in daily contact, updating her on the investigation that had now expanded to involve the FBI. 16 case files remained open on her desk, 15 past victims and 1 potential future target. In October, when the first cold snap hit Minnesota, Holt received a package at the station. Inside was a paper doll chain, all blank except for one. The final figure had a precisely written "soon" where the name should be. The package had been mailed from Phoenix, Arizona. When officers rushed to Marla's new apartment, they found the door unlocked. Inside, everything was in perfect order. On the kitchen table sat a cup of tea, still warm, beside an open book. But of Marla Peterson, there was no sign. Only a single paper doll lay on her pillow, complete, whole, with her name and the current year written across its chest. And beside it, a pair of scissors. To this day, the whereabouts of Marla Peterson remain unknown. The paper doll killer, as the media eventually named him, was never apprehended. The last confirmed communication believed to be from Ryan Keller was a handwritten letter sent to Detective Holt on the 1-year anniversary of Marla's disappearance. It contained just 4 words: "The chain is complete." Some nights in Oak Ridge, when the wind pushes through the trees and rattles old windows, residents swear they can hear the sound of paper dolls rustling against each other. dancing in the darkness of spaces we never think to check until it's too late. Crime 9, she walked in from work and froze. Everything was arranged exactly the same, but none of it was hers. The couch was blue instead of gray. The rug had a floral pattern. On the kitchen table, a dinner plate sat waiting, and a sticky note beside it read, "We missed you." Rebecca Danner had always been meticulous about her home in the quiet suburb of Lakeview, Connecticut. Friends described her as particular, organized, someone who noticed when a picture frame was tilted by even a degree. Her 3-bedroom colonial on Maple Street was her sanctuary, purchased after her divorce 4 years prior, a fresh start at age 34. The evening of October 12, 2018 had begun like any other Friday. Rebecca left Westlake Insurance, where she worked as an underwriter, at exactly 5:30 p.m. Security footage showed her walking to her car in the company parking garage. She made a brief stop at Walgreens, confirmed by her credit card statement, purchasing ibuprofen and a magazine. The cashier remembered her because they had chatted about an upcoming storm. Rebecca seemed normal, perhaps a bit tired. She arrived home around 6:15 p.m., according to her neighbor, Mrs. Alina Benson, who noticed Rebecca's silver Honda pull into the driveway. Mrs. Benson was walking her terrier and waved, but Rebecca was already fishing for her house keys and didn't see her. What happened in the next moments would haunt Lakeview for years to come. Rebecca stepped into her home, turned on the light, and found herself in what appeared to be her living room, yet it wasn't. The layout was identical. The furniture was positioned exactly as she had arranged it, but nothing, not a single item, belonged to her. In her later statement to police, Rebecca described the feeling as like walking into a parallel universe. The blue couch that had replaced her gray one was the same model, just a different color. The coffee table books weren't hers, but they were arranged in the same careful stack she always maintained. Family photos on the mantel showed people she had never seen before, positioned exactly where her own family photos had stood that morning. Most disturbing was the dinner table. A single place setting, one plate, one set of silverware, a glass of water, and that note, "We missed you." Rebecca backed out of the house, fumbling with her phone to call 911. Dispatcher Carol Whitman took the call at 6:22 p.m. The recording reveals Rebecca's voice shaking as she tried to explain what she had found. "Someone has replaced everything in my house, everything, like they were trying to recreate it, but with different things." Officers Paul Danvers and Michael Reed arrived at 6:31 p.m. Their body cam footage shows them entering the house cautiously, guns drawn. What they found matched Rebecca's description exactly, a home that looked lived in, arranged meticulously, but with no sign of forced entry and nothing that belonged to Rebecca Danner. The initial theory was simple. Rebecca had somehow entered the wrong house, but the key had worked in the lock. The address matched her driver's license. The exterior was undeniably her home, right down to the ceramic turtle she kept by the front door, a gift from her niece. The wrong furniture in the right house, Officer Danvers noted in his report. "I've never seen anything like it." A thorough search revealed more oddities. The refrigerator contained fresh food, milk, vegetables, leftovers in labeled containers. The master bedroom closet held women's clothing in Rebecca's size, but styles she would never wear. The bathroom cabinet contained prescription medication for someone named Catherine Mills. Rebecca stayed with her sister that night. Crime scene technicians worked until morning, dusting for fingerprints and collecting evidence. What they found only deepened the mystery. The house was immaculate. Few fingerprints were found, and those that were didn't match anyone in the system. No signs of forced entry. No indication of how someone could have removed all of Rebecca's possessions and replaced them with different ones in the span of a workday. Detective Liam Harrison took the lead on the case. His first step was to track down Catherine Mills, whose prescription medication was found in the bathroom. Department databases showed no one by that name in Connecticut. The prescription had been filled at a pharmacy in Burlington, Vermont, over 200 miles away. As media attention grew, tips began coming in. A moving truck had been seen on Maple Street that day, according to one neighbor, though they couldn't recall the company name or exact time. Another resident reported seeing two men in coveralls entering Rebecca's backyard around noon, but assumed they were maintenance workers. 3 days after the incident, Rebecca's original furniture and belongings were found in a storage unit in Hartford, 30 miles away. The unit had been rented with cash and fake ID in the name of, remarkably, Catherine Mills. Security footage from the storage facility showed a woman with dark hair and sunglasses, her face carefully angled away from cameras. She had rented the unit just 1 day before the incident. Meanwhile, forensic analysis of the replacement furniture revealed something unexpected. Many items showed signs of age and use, but some appeared brand new, tags removed but still detectable under special lighting. The family photos on the mantel featured the same group of people across different settings: a middle-aged couple, 2 young adults who appeared to be their children, and an elderly woman. None of them matched any missing persons reports or criminal databases. Rebecca remained shaken. In follow-up interviews, she revealed that she had begun receiving strange phone calls at work in the weeks before the incident, calls where the person on the other end would breathe quietly but say nothing. Her email account had shown login attempts from unknown devices. Once, she thought she saw someone watching her house from across the street, but when she looked again, they were gone. Detective Harrison developed a theory. Rebecca was being targeted by someone who knew her, someone methodical and patient. The goals seemed to be psychological torment rather than theft or physical harm. 6 weeks into the investigation, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A real estate agent in Burlington, Vermont reported that a woman matching the description of the storage facility renter had inquired about homes identical in layout to Rebecca's. The agent remembered her because of her unusual specificity. She wanted not just the same floor plan, but the same direction of light from windows, the same placement of electrical outlets. The woman had given her name as Lisa Warren, but her credit check and background documents later proved to be sophisticated forgeries. Then on December 3rd, Rebecca received a handwritten letter at work. Inside was a single line: "Do you like the changes I've made to our home?" Handwriting analysis provided no matches. The paper was common stock available at any office supply store. The postmark showed it had been mailed from New Haven, Connecticut. As winter settled over Lakeview, the case grew colder. Rebecca had moved in with her sister permanently, unable to return to the house where she no longer felt safe. The replacement furniture remained in police custody as evidence. The original furniture stayed in the storage unit, which was now under police surveillance. 4 months after the incident, Detective Harrison received a call from a psychiatric hospital in Providence, Rhode Island. A patient named Eliza Danner had been admitted after attempting suicide. During therapy, she had spoken about fixing her sister's house. Eliza Danner was Rebecca's younger sister by 2 years. There was no record of her in Rebecca's file. Rebecca had never mentioned having a second sister beyond the one she was staying with. When confronted with this information, Rebecca broke down. Eliza died when we were teenagers, she explained. A car accident. She was 16. Records confirmed Rebecca's story. Eliza Danner had died in 2001. The woman in the psychiatric hospital was using a stolen identity. When Detective Harrison arrived in Providence to interview the patient, he discovered she had checked herself out against medical advice just hours earlier. Security footage showed a woman with a striking resemblance to Rebecca herself leaving the building. The investigation took another turn when forensic accountants discovered unusual patterns in Rebecca's finances. Small amounts, never more than $100, had been withdrawn from her accounts regularly over the past year. The transactions were authorized with her correct PIN and passwords. As spring arrived, sightings of the mysterious woman were reported across New England. Always brief glimpses, always gone before authorities could respond. Always with some connection to Rebecca's life at her favorite coffee shop near her parents' home outside her workplace. Rebecca began therapy for anxiety and paranoia. Her therapist noted that Rebecca would sometimes refer to her home in the present tense, despite not having lived there for months. She would occasionally mention plans to redecorate or change things around. In April 2019, exactly 6 months after the incident, Rebecca stopped attending therapy. Her sister reported that she had packed a bag and left without explanation. Her car was found abandoned at a train station. Her credit cards and phone remained unused. 2 weeks later, Detective Harrison received a call from Mrs. Benson, Rebecca's former neighbor. Someone was living in Rebecca's house again. Lights were on at night. The silver Honda was back in the driveway. When officers arrived, they found the house occupied by a woman who identified herself as Catherine Mills. She provided a driver's license, mortgage documents, and utility bills, all in her name, all apparently legitimate. She expressed confusion about why police were questioning her. "I've lived here for 5 years," she insisted. "I don't know anyone named Rebecca." The interior of the home had been transformed once again. The furniture was neither Rebecca's original pieces nor the replacement set. This was a third collection, arranged in yet another configuration. On the refrigerator, officers noticed a photograph. Catherine Mills standing with the same people from the replacement family photos found months earlier. Facial recognition software would later determine that Catherine Mills and Rebecca Danner were the same person. The case of the wrong furniture in the right house remains officially open. Multiple theories have been proposed: identity theft, elaborate gaslighting, psychological break, or something more sinister. Some investigators believe Rebecca Danner created an alternate identity for reasons known only to herself. Others suspect she fell victim to an elaborate campaign of psychological manipulation. Mrs. Benson still lives across the street. She reports that sometimes, late at night, she sees 2 identical women through the windows of the house on Maple Street, one watching the other while she sleeps. The dinner plate that once waited on the kitchen table remains in police evidence. The meal it held was never identified. The note, "We missed you," was written in handwriting that experts determined matched both Rebecca Danner's and Catherine Mills'. To this day, no one knows who was truly missed or by whom. Story 10. In the hushed stillness of the night, a delicate flicker danced on the screen of the baby monitor, a fleeting anomaly that caught the mother's attention. At first, she brushed it off as mere interference, a glitch in the technology. But then, as if the air itself held its breath, the audio crackled with static, and a soft, eerie voice pierced through the darkness, whispering, "SHHH, go back to sleep." A chill ran down the mother's spine, her blood turning cold as she sprang from her bed, heart thundering in her chest. With trembling hands, she dashed to her son's room, the hallway stretching before her like a never-ending corridor of shadows. When she reached the nursery, her worst fear unfolded before her eyes. The crib stood empty, a silent witness to the inexplicable. The window remained closed, the door securely locked. The only discordant note in the room was the stuffed rabbit lying abandoned on the floor, its once innocent gaze now imbued with a haunting intensity, as if it held secrets beyond comprehension. Rebecca's anguished screams pierced the night, tearing through the silence like a knife. The neighbors, stirred from their slumber, dialed emergency services, their voices trembling with concern. When the authorities arrived, they found Rebecca cradling the stuffed rabbit, her world shattered, her soul adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The investigation that followed was shrouded in mystery, a puzzle with missing pieces that refused to fit together. No signs of forced entry marred the sanctity of the home. The security system stood sentry, undisturbed, and yet a child had vanished into the night, leaving behind a void that echoed with unanswered questions. Suspicions cast their dark shadow upon Rebecca, her every action scrutinized through a lens of doubt. Her husband, Daniel, absent during the turmoil, returned to a house haunted by whispers of betrayal and loss. Their fractured marriage, strained by the weight of unspoken truths, threatened to crumble beneath the weight of uncertainty. But then a glimmer of hope pierced the dense fog of despair. Forensic experts unearthed microscopic fibers on the nursery windowsill, a silent witness to an intruder's clandestine entry. The fibers, foreign to the household, hinted at a skilled trespasser, a shadow among shadows. As the focus shifted, new revelations came to light, pulling back the veil on a web of deceit woven with threads of darkness. Security footage whispered of a figure lurking in the night, a phantom navigating the shadows with practiced ease. A footprint in the garden's soil spoke of a presence unseen, a ghostly imprint of nefarious intent. Daniel, once a specter on the periphery, now stood at the center of the storm, his hands bearing the telltale marks of a secret life. Rock climbing, a hobby turned alibi, hinted at a darker truth lurking beneath the surface. His past, a tapestry of hidden regrets, unfurled like a sinister omen. The truth, a fragile thing, emerged from the shadows like a specter seeking redemption. The baby monitor, once a harbinger of fear, became a beacon of light in the darkness. Its digital whispers led the investigators to a hidden chamber, a place where secrets festered like wounds left unhealed. Samuel, the missing piece of the puzzle, was found alive, cradled in the arms of a woman named Elaine. Her eyes, vacant and haunted, bore witness to a past steeped in sorrow and longing. As the chains of deception unraveled, a truth long buried came to light. Daniel and Elaine, bound by a pact of shadows, stood accused of crimes most heinous: kidnapping, conspiracy, betrayal. Their voices, once cloaked in lies, now trembled with the weight of their sins, their fate sealed by the echoes of a whispered truth. In the courtroom where justice held sway, the air was heavy with the weight of untold stories. The baby monitor, its digital voice amplified by the silence, spoke of a night shrouded in darkness, of a mother's anguish and a child's innocence lost. As the gavel fell, sealing their fate, Rebecca and Samuel embarked on a journey of healing and redemption, leaving behind the shadows of the past. The stuffed rabbit, a silent witness to the truth, remained a reminder of a night when the darkness whispered secrets that could no longer be ignored. And so, as the night waned and the stars whispered their lullabies, Rebecca held her son close, the echoes of the past fading into the embrace of a new dawn. The baby monitor, a sentinel in the night, stood silent guard, its watchful gaze a reminder that even in the darkest of hours, the light of truth will always prevail. Story 11: The Enigmatic Manor. The new homeowners brushed off the crackling of the old intercom system as a quaint quirk, a remnant of a bygone era that had been rewired but left forgotten. It was a peculiar charm of the Victorian manor they now called home, nestled amidst ancient oak trees, its exterior weathered yet its interior modernized. Daniel and Meredith Parker had been drawn to the property not just for its history, but also for its unique vintage features, including the intercom system that connected all the rooms. One fateful night, curiosity got the best of the husband as he pressed the button on the intercom. A whisper, faint and eerie, crackled through the speaker, sending shivers down his spine. "Why did you come back?" The words hung in the air, chilling the room. His hands trembled as he stepped back, startled. His wife, standing behind him, whispered softly, "I never said that." The crackling intercom was just the beginning of a series of unsettling events that unfolded in the Parker household. Detective Sarah Reeves arrived at the manor in response to a call about a possible break-in, but there seemed to be an unspoken tension in the air, hinting at a deeper mystery waiting to be unraveled. Daniel, his complexion ghostly in the dim light of the porch, guided Detective Reeves through the grand foyer, recounting the strange occurrences that had plagued them. The intercom had gone from emitting static to whispers, then to full sentences. Even Meredith, usually a skeptic, had heard the haunting voices. In the living room, Meredith sat rigid on an antique sofa, her grip tight on a steaming mug she dared not touch. Without preamble, she revealed a startling discovery they had made behind a wall while expanding the kitchen pantry, a small leather-bound journal belonging to someone named Alina, the previous owner of the house. The journal, with its elegant yet frantic handwriting, unveiled a tale of suspicion and fear. Alina had documented her growing belief that her husband, Vincent, was plotting against her. The final entry, dated 30 years prior, hinted at a tragic end to her story, leaving behind a chilling mystery that lingered in the air. As Detective Reeves delved deeper into the history of the manor, she uncovered the truth behind the disappearance of Vincent and Alina Blackwood. The skeletal remains of a woman in her 40s, bearing signs of violence, were unearthed beneath the garden shed. A gold wedding band inscribed with "To Alina, my eternal love," provided a grim confirmation of the identity. Vincent Blackwood, now aged and residing in a care facility, confessed to the murder of his wife, revealing a chilling account of deceit and manipulation. He had silenced Alina's voice by burying her beneath the house, crafting a web of lies to conceal his crime for decades. The trial was swift, with Vincent admitting guilt to the crime he had meticulously orchestrated. The judge, recognizing the cold-hearted nature of the murder and the elaborate cover-up, delivered a harsh sentence. Daniel and Meredith, unable to bear the weight of the house's dark past, sold the property after a solemn memorial for Alina was held in the restored garden. The echo of the intercom whispers lingered even after the Parkers' departure, as workers removing the system during renovations reported hearing static and faint voices, dismissing them as mere interference. Detective Reeves, closing the Blackwood case file for the final time, pondered how the house itself had unveiled its hidden truth across time. The manor, now known as the house that answered back among local law enforcement, stood silent but not without a voice. As Detective Reeves passed by the property on her way home, she would slow down, the window cracked open to catch whispers carried on the wind, a reminder of the enigmatic secrets that lay within those ancient walls. Story 12. She crossed the threshold, stirring up dust in the still air of the abandoned house. Years had passed, leaving the walls peeling and the furniture draped in ghostly sheets. Every step felt like entering a suspended moment in time except for the mysterious doors. Each one she opened led her back to the same room, the parlor, no matter how she tried to navigate the corridors. The only escape seemed to be the way she had entered, but when she turned around, the front door had vanished. The discovery of Morgan Pierce's lifeless body turned the once forgotten Victorian house into a crime scene. Detective Sarah Lind stood at the entrance, observing forensic experts moving silently through the dim interior like fleeting shadows. Among the locals, the house had gained a reputation, a place where compasses spun wildly and where a sense of being watched lingered in the air. Now it harbored secrets darker than mere urban legends. The initial examination indicates she passed around 3 days ago, the medical examiner murmured softly. It appears she died from asphyxiation. Morgan was found seated in an antique chair in the parlor, facing the entrance as if expecting a visitor. Her expression serene, hands folded neatly in her lap. No signs of struggle, no defensive wounds. The scene exuded a chilling stillness that unsettled even the seasoned investigators. "Who discovered the body?" Lind inquired, scanning her notes. "A real estate agent showing the property to potential buyers," her partner replied. They entered, saw her sitting there, mistaking her for a trespasser until they drew closer. The house had remained empty since the passing of its previous owner, Eleanor Blackwood, nearly 5 years earlier. Legal battles had left the property abandoned, unsold, and mostly forgotten except by vandals and thrill seekers. Morgan Pierce, a 26-year-old graduate student studying architectural anomalies for her thesis, had a reputation for being methodical, ambitious, and intrigued by spaces that defied traditional design. The enigmatic Victorian, known for disorienting visitors, must have called to her curiosity. Her roommate reported her missing 2 days ago, Lind noted. Morgan mentioned visiting the house where people get lost for her research. Investigations unveiled that Morgan had frequented the house in the weeks leading up to her demise. Her journal entries detailed strange acoustics, chilling cold spots, and doors that seemed to lead to different places each time she opened them. In her final entry, she spoke of bringing specialized equipment to document what she termed spatial anomalies. Yet this equipment was nowhere to be found. During the autopsy, an unexpected revelation emerged: trace amounts of a rare alkaloid in Morgan's system, derived from a plant used in shamanic rituals. While the substance could cause disorientation and vivid hallucinations, the quantities found were not lethal. She wasn't into recreational drugs, her boyfriend insisted. Morgan was meticulous in her research methods. She wouldn't have jeopardized her perception intentionally. Digital investigations unearthed traces of deleted messages on Morgan's phone. Conversations with a person who shared her fascination with the house, someone claiming to comprehend its mysteries. The messages grew intimate and cryptic. "The house retains its memories," one message hinted. "It seeks someone to understand." The trail led detectives to Adam Reeves, an architectural historian who had corresponded with Morgan. His expertise in rare spatial phenomena had captivated her, and their professional bond had evolved into something more personal. When questioned, Reeves seemed genuinely shattered by her demise. "The house has a reputation," he explained. The original architect incorporated optical illusions and false perspectives, designed to disorient and confuse. Morgan believed there was more to it, something beyond mere design tricks. However, Reeves had a solid alibi for the estimated time of Morgan's passing a university symposium lecture, captured on security footage hours away. A breakthrough emerged from an unexpected source: Alina Blackwood's grandson, now living overseas. Contacted by investigators, he divulged a long-held family secret. "My grandmother wasn't the only Blackwood to perish in that house," he disclosed. "Others met their end there, always found in the parlor, always at peace." The family termed it the claiming. He shared journals spanning decades, detailing deaths initially attributed to natural causes like heart failure or stroke. The recurring pattern was clear: individuals spending time in the house eventually succumbed to what the family euphemistically dubbed the influence. A secondary search of the property unveiled a concealed compartment behind the parlor's fireplace. Inside, investigators discovered Morgan's missing equipment and something more. A small chamber held artifacts from various indigenous cultures, meticulously arranged in a geometric pattern. At the center sat a weathered figurine, representing a deity associated with liminal spaces, thresholds between worlds. Traces of the alkaloid found in Morgan's system were detected on the artifacts. The case took a chilling turn when dust analysis in the house revealed the presence of another individual when Morgan met her end. Partial fingerprints unrelated to Morgan or any known visitors were recovered from doorknobs throughout the house. 3 weeks into the inquiry, Adam Reeves was found deceased in his apartment. Like Morgan, he was seated towards the entrance, an expression of tranquility on his face, with the same alkaloid in his system. Clutched in his hand was a key that fit no lock in his apartment, but seamlessly unlocked the hidden compartment in the Victorian. In his final email, sent to himself as if preserving a testament, Reeves penned, "The house doesn't trap you physically, it ensnares your perception." Morgan was correct: the doors lead where they've always led, but something tricks you into believing you're going in circles. Once you grasp the truth, you can depart at any time, yet by then you no longer desire to. The case remains officially open, categorized as suspicious deaths under examination. The Victorian has since been condemned, its access restricted by authorities. Nevertheless, whispers persist of lights flickering inside on certain nights and of visitors who vanish within its walls. Some locals assert that the house seizes those who comprehend its secrets too deeply. Others speculate that Morgan and Reeves uncovered something ancient and potent, existing in the spaces between ordinary reality. The reality remains as elusive as an exit in a house where all doors lead back to the beginning. Story 13. The apartment lay dormant for months, a silent witness to its own secrets. When the new tenants crossed the threshold, they anticipated only a layer of dust and perhaps some forsaken furniture. But one door resisted their efforts, stubbornly locked from within. It stood as a sentinel, guarding its hidden truths. With a determined push, the landlord finally breached the barrier, revealing a closet shrouded in mystery. The air hung heavy with anticipation as they braced for the expected disarray of forgotten belongings. Yet what greeted them was far more chilling. The walls bore witness to a silent struggle, etched with deep, erratic scratches that spoke of desperation. In the dim corner, an ancient flip phone lay dormant, its screen illuminated by a single, unread message. Detective Morgan Shaw, a seasoned investigator with a keen intuition, felt a shiver run down her spine at the sight. It wasn't the presence of blood or explicit violence that unnerved her, but the haunting implications of those haunting marks. Someone had been trapped within that confining space, clawing for freedom. "We need forensics on site immediately," she instructed her partner, Officer Reed, who methodically documented the grim tableau before them, and gather all records of the previous tenants. The cryptic message on the phone simply stated, "I know what you did." The landlord, a jittery figure with perpetually clammy hands, stammered out a tale of the previous tenants' abrupt departure, leaving unpaid rent in their wake. A quiet young woman kept to herself, vanished about 6 months back, he muttered, avoiding the closet's ominous presence. No trouble caused. Forensic analysis unveiled a macabre revelation within the scratches on the wall's traces of multiple blood samples, most aligning with a single individual. The missing tenant, Emma Caldwell, a 28-year-old woman reported absent by her employer when she ceased appearing. Yet amidst the familiar DNA, 2 anomalies emerged. One sample remained unidentifiable, a ghost in the genetic code. The other belonged to a man declared deceased for 2 years. "This defies all logic," Shaw murmured, studying the perplexing findings. Derek Mercer, a convict presumed dead in a tragic accident, left an inexplicable genetic imprint within Emma's concealed prison. Emma's dwelling painted a poignant narrative of a life-interrupted unopened mail, a lone coffee mug abandoned in the sink, a neatly arranged bed. Phone records unveiled a pattern of regular calls with her sister, abruptly ceasing, interspersed with a flurry of unrecognized numbers in the weeks leading to her disappearance. Her sister mentioned a mysterious boyfriend, Officer Reed relayed. No name given, just described as intense and private. Surveillance footage captured Emma's nightly return, shadowed by a figure in a baseball cap evading the watchful gaze of cameras. The puzzle pieces began to align when partial fingerprints of Derek Mercer surfaced on the closet's interior doorknob. He staged his demise, Shaw concluded, but why and what ties him to Emma? The enigma deepened as the unidentified DNA led them to another missing soul, Lynette Porter, vanished 3 years prior. Her case, a frigid trail gone cold, found a tenuous connection to Emma through eyewitness accounts of her visits to the apartment. Shaw's scrutiny of traffic cameras revealed a familiar vehicle registered to Derek Mercer's kin lingering near Emma's residence. A sinister pattern unraveled, linking Mercer to the shadowed doorways of tragedy. Their pursuit unveiled a secluded estate belonging to the Mercer clan, concealing a grim secret behind fortified cellar doors. Within the dim confines, they discovered Lynette Porter frail, malnourished, a mirror image of Emma's captivity. "He forced me to witness," she whispered, eyes vacant with trauma. "Said I must learn the fate of those who seek escape." The evidence mounted a trove of journals chronicling Mercer's obsession with dominance, a gallery of photographs capturing the likenesses of Emma and Lynette, and most damningly, video recordings of Mercer herding Emma into her prison. "She thought to expose us," his voice echoed in the recording. "No one reveals my truths." The manhunt for Derek Mercer spanned jurisdictions, a shadow slipping through the cracks. Forensic profilers sketched a chilling portrait of a predator reveling not in death, but in the agony of confined souls, savoring their dwindling hope. When Mercer was finally apprehended at a bus terminal, a specter of new beginnings clung to him, embodied by a roll of duct tape, a gleaming blade, and a faded headline of Emma's vanishing. During interrogation, Mercer exuded a disquieting calm, his words laced with a perverse rationale. "She sent that message herself," he dismissed of the phone's ominous text. "She craved discovery but found only her fate." The trial unfurled the intricate web Mercer had spun to vanish, adopting a new guise under a borrowed identity, preying on echoes of his initial victim. Emma's remains eluded discovery, a spectral enigma lost within the confines of her final struggle. The jury's swift verdict sealed Mercer's fate a life sentence sans reprieve. As the judge intoned the sentence, Mercer's lips curled in a fleeting smirk, a private satisfaction dancing behind his eyes. In a moment of catharsis, Lynette Porter faced her tormentor, declaring, "He locked us in shadows because that's where his soul resides, but while he withers, I'll bask in the light." The case reshaped missing persons procedures, emphasizing the nuances of relational dynamics and the scrutiny of rental domains. Detective Shaw preserved the closet door from Emma's abode, an emblem of resilience amidst adversity, a poignant reminder that the most harrowing crime scenes are not daubed in crimson, but etched with the fervor of survival. Story 14, the aged box lay buried under layers of forgotten belongings in the dusty attic, a silent witness to the passage of time in the old house. Within its weathered confines rested faded Polaroids, snapshots of bygone birthdays and family gatherings, each capturing moments of normalcy and innocence. Yet as she delved deeper, her fingers brushing against the memories of strangers, she stumbled upon the photograph that shattered the tranquility of her existence. The last photo gripped her with an icy hand as she gazed upon it. Taken within the familiar walls of her living room, it depicted a family she did not recognize. A woman with honey blonde locks, a bespectacled man, and two children smiled serenely at the camera, oblivious to the sinister presence lingering in the shadows behind them. A figure, barely discernible in the dimness, stood watchful in the hallway, a silent sentinel of unknown intentions. Rebecca's breath caught in her throat as she traced the outlines of the mysterious photograph, her senses tingling with an inexplicable foreboding. Descending the creaking wooden steps, she carried the unsettling image into the harsh light of the kitchen, where the truth of its implications began to unfold before her. The detective, clad in a worn leather jacket that whispered of untold mysteries, arrived to unravel the enigma shrouding the photograph. With eyes that missed nothing, Detective Morgan scrutinized the Polaroid, his inquiries hinting at a deeper connection between the haunting image and the shadows of the past. As the investigation unfurled its tendrils, a chilling pattern emerged, a tapestry woven with threads of disappearances and unanswered questions. Families came and went, leaving behind echoes of their presence in the walls of the house. The Nelsons, the Crawfords, the Mornos, the Sutherlands, all mere phantoms in a timeline of transient occupants. Forensic revelations unveiled unsettling truths concealed within the photograph. An unknown figure, tall and cloaked in darkness, lingered on the fringes of each captured moment, a spectral observer with a presence that defied explanation. And at the heart of the mystery stood a man long believed to be lost to the annals of time, Samuel Whitfield, the elusive architect of their shared fate. Beneath the concrete shroud of the basement, the secrets of the house lay entombed, a macabre gallery of preserved memories and vanished lives. Each family, trapped in eternal repose, bore witness to the sinister legacy of Samuel Whitfield, whose spectral influence extended far beyond the confines of mortality. As Rebecca sought sanctuary from the encroaching darkness, a chilling revelation pierced the veil of her sanctuary. In the hidden recesses of the attic, a sinister chamber concealed the tools of an unseen observer, a voyeur who had documented their lives with meticulous precision, awaiting the moment of their inevitable discovery. The echoes of the past reverberated through the empty halls of the house, where whispers of unspeakable truths lingered in the shadows. With each passing day, the specter of Samuel Whitfield loomed larger, a phantom presence that defied all attempts to exorcise its hold on the living. Amidst the silence of the abandoned house, the legacy of Samuel Whitfield endured, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the veneer of domesticity. and as the night unfolded its mysteries, the watchers in the shadows continued their eternal vigil, bearing witness to the unending cycle of fear and fascination that bound them to the house of lost souls. By 15, the aged library faced its fate of demolition, the workers nearing completion when a serendipitous stumble revealed a concealed latch within a bookshelf. With a gentle click, the entire case pivoted open, unveiling a narrow passageway leading to a clandestine chamber. The air within was heavy, stagnant with the passage of time, devoid of furniture save for a solitary chair in the center, securely fastened to the floor. Etched repeatedly on the wall, a haunting message echoed, "I am still here." The construction foreman swiftly contacted the authorities. What had commenced as a routine demolition swiftly spiraled into the realm of the ominous. Detective Morgan Walsh, with 2 decades of policing experience under his belt, found himself facing a scene unlike any other he had encountered. Standing at the threshold, his flashlight pierced the darkness, revealing the unsettling inscription that adorned the walls. "Secure the area," Walsh commanded the officers, his voice resonating in the confined space. "No one disturbs a thing until forensics arrives." The library's history cast a captivating backdrop. Once possessed by the Harrington family, esteemed figures in the community who bestowed the building to the public following the mysterious disappearance of their daughter, Rebecca. She had vanished during her final year of college, leaving no trace save for her abandoned car near the woods. Despite exhaustive searches and inquiries, the case grew cold. The prevailing belief insinuated she had eloped to forge a new path, a notion her family vehemently refuted, convinced of a more sinister fate. As forensic specialists meticulously combed through the hidden chamber, they unearthed hair and fabric remnants embedded in the chair. The wall's scratches harbored minute traces of blood and skin cells beneath layers of dust. The biological evidence hinted at a young female. The chair was intended for restraint, the forensic analyst remarked, gesturing to the bolt holes and aged leather straps still affixed to the arms. Whoever occupied this space fought fiercely. Walsh mobilized a team to delve into the Harrington family's past. The timing of the library's donation tugged at his instincts. It had been gifted to the public shortly after Rebecca's vanishing, a peculiar coincidence now assuming potential significance. Further inquiry unveiled a disquieting revelation. The bookshelf concealing the secret room had been installed by a contractor exclusively hired by Maxwell Harrington, Rebecca's uncle and the family patriarch. Financial records disclosed substantial payments to this contractor, surpassing standard renovation expenses. Former library personnel expressed astonishment at the discovery. None had been privy to the hidden enclave, though an elderly librarian recollected Maxwell's prolonged seclusion in that section after hours. She presumed his solitude was attributed to a love for literature and a desire for privacy. The investigation heightened when DNA results confirmed the genetic material in the hidden room matched samples from Rebecca's hairbrush. The timeline grew clearer and more chilling. Rebecca hadn't fled. She had been incarcerated behind the bookshelf, possibly by a kin. Detectives secured a warrant to probe the Harrington estate. In Maxwell's study, a leather-bound journal was discovered within a concealed compartment. Its pages chronicled months of entries, unveiling an unsettling fixation on his niece. The final entry sent shivers down their spines. She threatened to expose everything. "I cannot permit that. The room shall confine her until she comprehends." Locating Maxwell in a coastal retirement enclave, investigators confronted him. Initially composed, he dismissed the hidden room as an architectural enigma he knew naught of. Confronted with the journal and DNA proof, his fa-a-de crumbled. She was on the verge of ruining it all, he finally conceded, his tone devoid of emotion. Rebecca unearthed documents proving my embezzlement from the family foundation. The family's reputation was paramount. I couldn't allow her to tarnish it. The confession painted a ghastly tableau. Maxwell had lured Rebecca to the library, subdued her, and incarcerated her in the hidden room, intending to keep her until she consented to silence. Yet, in a fatal misstep, Rebecca had endeavored to flee. In the ensuing struggle, he had ended her life. I panicked, Maxwell confessed during the recording. I interred her beneath the room's floorboards and sealed it. Then I donated the building to ensure that section remained untouched. Ground-penetrating technology confirmed human remains beneath the hidden room's flooring. Excavation unveiled Rebecca's skeletal remnants, adorned with the silver bracelet gifted by her parents on her 20th birthday. The Harrington family bore witness to Maxwell's sentencing, a silent embodiment of long-awaited justice. Rebecca's mother clutched her daughter's retrieved bracelet, the sole relic allowing for a proper burial. The library's demolition halted indefinitely, evolving into a place of remembrance and retrospection. Locals left flowers at its entrance, a tribute to a life unjustly curtailed and a truth concealed behind a bookshelf awaiting revelation. In a sorrowful twist of fate, Rebecca had the ultimate say. Her desperate message, "I am still here," etched on the walls, ensuring she would forever linger in memory, and that justice, though delayed, would ultimately emerge from obscurity. Story 16, the town held a secret tucked away at the edge of the woods, a house that whispered forgotten tales through its blackened windows and weary porch. Unclaimed by any owner, its origins shrouded in mystery, the house bore witness to a chilling enigma. Hikers, drawn by curiosity, stumbled upon its weathered walls adorned with names deeply etched like ominous echoes of the past. Amidst the list, a fresh name gleamed unfamiliar, sending shivers through the trespassers. "That's mine," one of them confessed in a quivering voice, unraveling a haunting mystery. In the dead of night, a call pierced the silence, marking a routine report of trespassing. Mason Wright, the lead hiker who discovered his name etched into the abandoned house, recounted a tale that defied logic. Responding officers anticipated a simple case of mischief, a teenage prank gone awry. But what awaited them surpassed all expectations, veiled in shadows and intrigue. Detective Sarah Keller ventured into the darkness, her flashlight cutting through the night to reveal the eerie sight before her. 27 names adorned the walls, fading with time or freshly carved, each representing a missing soul from the past 4 decades. A chilling realization gripped the investigators as they delved into the enigmatic engravings, tracing a trail of vanished hikers with mounting dread. Mason, bewildered and adamant, disavowed any ties to the house or its haunting legacy. Background checks unearthed a bone-chilling connection. All the names belonged to individuals who had disappeared while hiking alone, their fates entwined in a sinister web of mystery. As the investigation deepened, a sense of foreboding descended upon the team, each revelation leading them closer to the heart of darkness. Amidst the dust and decay of the abandoned house, a macabre discovery awaited in the basement, a shrine of lost possessions meticulously arranged, each item bearing a name from the wall outside. Bloodstains hinted at unspeakable horrors, prompting a grim realization of the evil that lurked within those walls. As paranoia gripped Mason and eerie occurrences plagued his every step, the truth began to unfurl like a sinister tapestry. The elusive Victor Blackwood, a reclusive hunter with a dark past, emerged as a key figure in the unfolding nightmare. His journal, a testament to his twisted obsession with hunting humans, painted a harrowing picture of a predator stalking his prey with chilling precision. The manhunt for Blackwood ignited a frenzy of activity, culminating in a desperate race against time. Yet, as the net closed in, Mason's disappearance cast a pall of unease over the investigators. A cryptic message left behind hinted at a deadly game of cat and mouse, blurring the lines between hunter and hunted. The final revelation, hidden behind a false wall in Blackwood's lair, exposed a sinister truth, a trap laid with meticulous care, waiting for its next victim. The house, now a watchful sentinel, stood as a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within its walls, a testament to the darkness that lurked in the heart of the forest. To this day, the house stands under vigilant watch, a grim reminder of the unspeakable deeds that transpired amidst its decaying walls. The names etched into its facade remain a chilling testament to the vanished souls, a whispered curse that haunts the depths of the woods. And as new disappearances echo through the forest, the legend of the house at the edge of the woods grows, a tale of terror that few dare to speak of, lest they too become lost in its shadowy embrace. Story 17. The aged apartment exuded a sense of history, its creaking heating system and rattling pipes creating a familiar background symphony for those within its walls. A melody of the past, she reassured herself, until one night a subtle shift in the air caught her attention. A voice, distant yet unmistakable, drifted through the vents like a ghostly whisper. It was not the usual hum of neighbors or the building settling, it was calling out to her, beckoning her into the mystery. Intrigued yet hesitant, she lined in, her heart quickening at the eerie sensation. A cool breath brushed against her cheek, followed by a soft, almost playful declaration, "I know you can hear me." Detective Morgan Shaw found herself standing in the heart of the empty apartment, her gaze fixated on the rusted vent cover that had been forcibly removed. The forensics team moved with precision around her, capturing every detail with their cameras as if preserving a fragile memory. The missing woman, Alina Reeves, had vanished without a trace, her absence unnoticed until a faint odor permeated the building. What they uncovered within the ventilation system defied logic. Officer Patel, his voice measured, recounted Alina's distressing reports of voices filtering through the vents, dismissed by the building management as quirks of an aging structure. Shaw knelt by the vent, tracing the deep scratches around its edges with a furrowed brow. These marks were not accidental. They spoke of a frantic struggle, of desperate attempts to break free from within. Alina, a beloved kindergarten teacher with a penchant for nurturing life, had left behind a world that still bore her gentle touch. Her classroom sat empty, her plants thriving in the sunlight that filtered through the window. Her absence had left a void that her students, her sister, and Shaw sought to comprehend. The sister's words echoed in Shaw's mind, revealing Alina's growing paranoia in the days leading up to her disappearance. The belief that unseen eyes watched her, unseen lips whispered to her through the very walls of her sanctuary. Shaw scanned the room, each detail now laden with unspoken questions. The bed made with precision, the abandoned coffee mug, the chair placed beneath the vent as if awaiting a listener. As the investigation delved deeper, unsettling truths emerged. Fibers from Alina's clothing trapped in the vent, a foreign fingerprint on the inside of the cover, and chilling audio recordings from her phone. Alone in her car, rain tapping against the windows, Shaw listened to Alina's plea for validation, met only by a haunting whisper that promised connection. The building's history, a tapestry of secrets, unfurled before Shaw's eyes. Previous tenants vanishing without a trace, whispers of voices in the walls, and a superintendent named Harold Weber, a man wrapped in enigmatic calmness. His nonchalance wavered only when questioned about apartment 4B, a subtle shift in demeanor hinting at hidden truths. A hidden passage discovered behind a loose tile in Aliner's bathroom unveiled a clandestine realm within the building's structure. A space inhabited by someone who had lived in the shadows, observing, listening, and whispering into the void. Shaw's order to search Weber's residence unearthed a meticulously organized collection of recordings, a digital shrine to his obsession with Aliner and those before her. Weber's arrest brought a chilling revelation to light, his serene demeanor contrasting with the horrors he had orchestrated. His words, cryptic and haunting, spoke of a symbiotic relationship with the building, a belief that he was its voice, its conduit to the inhabitants within. The trial painted a portrait of a predator lurking within the walls, a manipulator of reality, a puppeteer of whispers. Weber's conviction was swift, a verdict echoed by the building's silent walls. Yet his parting words to Shaw lingered, a ghostly promise of voices that would never fade. The once vacant apartment building now stands as a hollow testament to its dark past. New owners, fresh paint, and renovations cannot erase the lingering whispers that dance through the vents. Residents speak of cold drafts that carry unseen murmurs, of shadows that move in the corners of their eyes. The building's groans and rattles continue, a melody of the past that refuses to fade into silence. It's nothing out of the ordinary, they tell themselves as they drift into the realm of dreams, where reality and whispers intertwine in a mysterious dance. Story 18. The old Polaroid held secrets of a forgotten past, frozen smiles and dancing candles captured on film. But hidden within the group was an enigmatic figure, a man lurking in the shadows, edging closer with each snapshot. Sarah Winters stumbled upon the box of memories while clearing out her mother's attic after the funeral. Memories was scrawled on the cardboard, a deceptive label for the chilling contents within. The photographs should have brought comfort, a glimpse into happier times. Instead, they unveiled a sinister truth. In the first image, the shadowy figure loomed at the periphery of Sarah's 7th birthday party, barely discernible. As the photos progressed, he crept closer, blending into the background unnoticed by the oblivious family members. Alarmed by the eerie discovery, Sarah reached out to her father, seeking answers to the mystery man haunting the cherished memories. But his denial only deepened the unease. Detective Marcus Reed took on the case, his seasoned eyes studying the progression of photos that revealed a disturbing pattern. The figure's calculated movements through the gatherings, always lingering just out of sight, sent shivers down Sarah's spine. No one recalled his presence. No logical explanation could dispel the growing sense of dread. The investigation led to a breakthrough when enhanced images unveiled identifying details linking the shadowy figure to a long-forgotten criminal, Robert Keller. Keller's connection to past abductions, his sinister presence at the gatherings, and the grim discoveries under his former home cemented the horrifying truth. The buried memories resurfaced, exposing the hidden horrors that had lurked beneath the surface for decades. Alone in her apartment, Sarah confronted the chilling reality that the man in the shadows had been a predator among them, unseen yet ever present. The closure brought by the revelations was tainted with grief for the victims, their fates intertwined through the lens of a camera. As Sarah carefully packed away the damning evidence, she pondered the chilling notion that sometimes the most insidious threats remain invisible, masked by the facade of normality. The hidden figures in the family photos had finally been unmasked, their legacy of darkness exposed to the light of justice, a haunting reminder that evil can lurk in the most unsuspecting places, moving undetected through the frozen moments of time. Story 19. The worn wooden plank shifted beneath her weight, a subtle movement that caught her attention in the quiet of the house. Intrigued, she knelt down, her fingers tracing the edges of the loose board, sensing the hidden space below. With gentle determination, she lifted the boards, revealing a dark, secret chamber beneath the floorboards of her new home. As she peered into the darkness, her eyes adjusting to the dim light, she made out the shapes within. A mattress lay in one corner, a chair in another, and a tattered notebook resting nearby. Her name, written repeatedly on its pages, sent a shiver down her spine. Detective Morgan Reed stood silently behind Sarah Coleman, observing the mix of fear and curiosity in her expression as she gazed into the hidden room. It wasn't just the discovery of the secret chamber that unsettled Sarah, it was the violation of her safety, the intrusion of something sinister into her newfound sanctuary. "Please don't touch anything else." Detective Reed's voice was calm but firm as she directed Sarah. With a click of her flashlight, she illuminated more of the concealed space, revealing walls adorned with surveillance photographs, capturing Sarah's every move, evidence of a chilling obsession that had been lurking beneath her feet. The small cottage had been purchased from the estate of an elderly man named Walter Green, a recluse who had left no known heirs. The property had sat empty for months before Sarah had come across it, drawn in by its quaint charm and the promise of a fresh start. Yet no mention had been made of the hidden room during inspections or the sale. "I never met him, the previous owner," Sarah murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "The neighbors said he kept to himself. I was assured that basement access had been sealed off long ago." The arrival of crime scene investigators brought a flurry of activity to the hidden room. They meticulously documented every detail, carefully removing the mattress, chair, and notebook for further analysis. Forensic experts uncovered Walter Green's fingerprints scattered throughout the chamber, painting a disturbing picture of his obsession with Sarah. The timeline that emerged from utility records and dated photographs found in the hidden room revealed that Walter had been watching Sarah for years, silently tracking her every move. He had blended into the background of her life, attending the same events, shopping at the same stores, all while remaining unnoticed by Sarah. "The level of fixation is concerning," the department psychologist remarked during a briefing. "The hidden room suggests a deepening obsession, a progression towards more direct actions." Detective Reed's investigation took an unexpected turn when she interviewed Walter's former coworker from the local shopping center maintenance department. Fidgeting nervously, the man revealed Walter's fixation on Sarah, his belief that she belonged with him, a notion dismissed as harmless infatuation until now. A search of Walter's workplace locker led to the discovery of a key that unlocked a storage unit registered in his name. Inside, a chilling replica of Sarah's former living space awaited them: furniture, decorations, even a mannequin resembling her, all meticulously arranged. A calendar marked with a foreboding date hinted at Walter's twisted plans. In his youth, Walter had been institutionalized for erotomania, a delusional belief in a mutual romantic connection where none existed. Decades of stable living had shattered when Sarah unknowingly triggered his dormant fixation, leading to a disturbing spiral of obsession. As the investigation unfolded, Sarah made the difficult decision to sell the house, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. During her final walkthrough with the realtor, she reflected on the chilling realization of what could have been had she not uncovered the hidden chamber beneath her feet. The case was officially closed after Walter's death, labeled as stalking with intent to abduct, a grim reminder of the dangers that had loomed unseen. Sarah moved away, cautious and vigilant, while Detective Reed kept a watchful eye from afar, a silent guardian against the shadows that had once threatened to consume her. The cottage passed into the hands of a young couple, oblivious to its dark past. The hidden room was sealed off, the floorboards replaced, and life continued on its course. But for those privy to the secret beneath the floor, it remained a haunting reminder of the monsters that lurk in the shadows and the fragile line that separates safety from danger. Story 20. In the quiet anticipation of a new life, she felt the urge to transform the nursery, to repaint the faded blue walls that seemed to hold untold stories within their worn layers. As she carefully applied the first coat of white paint, a hidden message emerged, faint at first, but then growing sharper and clearer beneath the surface. Don't let it hear you. Her heart skipped a beat as she took a step back, her eyes widening in disbelief. There in the fresh paint were tiny handprints too high for a child to reach. A sense of unease settled in her chest, a mystery unfolding in the nursery of the Morgan residence. The young couple had bought the Victorian-style home at a bargain, unaware of the darkness that lurked within its walls. Detective Sarah Klein, notebook in hand, arrived at the doorstep, greeted by a pregnant woman with weary eyes and trembling hands. The woman recounted the chilling discovery of the hidden message and handprints, revealing that the previous owners had vanished overnight, leaving behind only whispers of their abrupt departure. Inside the historic home, Detective Klein's footsteps echoed on the creaking floorboards as she reached the nursery. The unfinished wall bore the haunting message, a silent warning from the past. Next to it, 5 small handprints marked the wall, a ghostly imprint of the unknown. Back at the precinct, the detective delved into the house's troubled history, uncovering a pattern of short-lived occupants and disturbing accounts of children hearing whispers and feeling unseen eyes upon them. The trail led back to Eleanor Blackwood, a wealthy widow who had once operated an orphanage on the property, where 5 children had mysteriously vanished. The sealed room behind the nursery wall held tragic remnants of the past children's belongings, but no bodies. Eleanor's macabre intentions came to light through her journals, revealing a twisted belief in harnessing the life force of orphaned children for her own gain. As the investigation progressed, the truth emerged in a chilling revelation. Ground-penetrating radar unveiled 5 small shapes beneath the basement floor, leading to the grim discovery of the children's remains, finally bringing closure to their untold fate. The nursery walls, once witnesses to unspeakable horrors, glowed with hidden handprints under the luminol's gaze, a silent testament to the lost innocence that lingered in the house. Despite the justice served for the victims, an unsettling presence remained, a spectral echo that transcended time and memory. The nursery walls, tainted by the past, were torn down in an attempt to erase the lingering whispers, yet the voices persisted, echoing in the empty corridors of the condemned house. Detective Klein's final report captured the eerie essence of the case, preserving the haunting image of the luminol handprints as a reminder of the lingering mysteries that defied explanation. As the house faded into obscurity, a relic of forgotten horrors, the legacy of the Whispering House case endured, a spectral enigma that whispered through the layers of paint and time, a chilling reminder that some secrets are bound to the shadows forever. Story 21. The hotel stood quietly, a relic of the past, where guests only paused for a night's rest. The receptionist passed her the key with a cryptic glance. "Just avoid the final door on the left," he murmured. Intrigue tugged at her, urging her to explore. That evening, as she wandered down the shadowy corridor, she halted before it. The knob chilled her hand. The door blended in with the others until she pressed her ear against it. From within, a faint breath whispered. Detective Morgan Reed awoke groggily, slipping under the yellow tape barring entry to the room. The odor struck her first, an unmistakable tang of metal and decay. Blood had stained the thin carpet, mingling with the dim light to create an eerie scene. The room revealed a stark contrast: an immaculate bathroom, an undisturbed bed, and in between, the grim tableau of a young woman's lifeless form sprawled on the floor. Her golden locks splayed out like a halo, her eyes fixed on the ceiling in a silent gaze of shock or dread. Reed knelt beside the victim, cautious not to disrupt the evidence markers dotting the area. "Third instance this season," remarked the forensic expert, his tone devoid of emotion as he captured images of the scene. "The same pattern as before," Reed nodded gravely. The victim wore upscale attire out of place in this forgotten inn. A designer handbag lay open, untouched on the bedside table. This wasn't a robbery, a different motive drove this heinous act. The hotel manager lingered anxiously in the doorway, his complexion pale. "She arrived alone, paid in cash. I never imagined," his voice faltered. "The maid discovered her during cleaning." Reed surveyed the room anew. No signs of forced entry, no defensive wounds on the victim. She had either let her assailant in willingly or knew them already. Back at the precinct, Reed pinned up photos on the board. 3 women, strikingly similar, all found in rundown motels off the beaten path. Speculations of a serial predator began to circulate. "The autopsy findings are in," announced Detective Hayes, dropping a file on Reed's desk. "Death by manual strangulation. No DNA under the victim's nails. No indications of assault." Reed furrowed her brow. This was personal, not just a random attack. Days melded together as the investigation deepened. Surveillance footage from the hotel revealed nothing of significance. The victim, identified as Elaine Werner, was a meticulous financial analyst with no known enemies. Her acquaintances described her as cautious, precise, not a person who would willingly stay in such a place. A breakthrough emerged during Reed's interview with Werner's sister. She mentioned a man from her workplace. The sister divulged, her hands trembling around her cup. "Someone secretive. I think he was married." Reed leaned in. "Did she share a name?" "Just C," the sister replied. The focus shifted to Werner's office. Colleagues depicted her as reserved, dedicated. None were aware of any relationship. Yet a business card tucked into her desk calendar led Reed to Charles Emerson, Senior Vice President. Emerson exuded confidence during questioning, sympathetic, cooperative, keeping a safe distance. His alibi seemed airtight, dining with his wife and friends, but a flicker in his gaze unsettled Reed. "Did you have a personal connection with Elaine Werner outside of work?" Reed inquired casually. A fleeting expression crossed Emerson's face, barely perceptible. "Only professionally." Later on, forensics matched partial prints from Werner's bag to Emerson. When confronted, his facade crumbled. "We were involved," he confessed, "but it was over. She threatened to expose me to my wife." "Enough to take a life," Reed pressed. Emerson's demeanor hardened. "I never set foot in that motel." Records from the hotel contradicted his claim. A credit card transaction for the adjacent room paid with a company card linked to Emerson. In that room, a hidden camera was discovered in the shared wall vent, the evidence mounted against him. Fibers from Emerson's suit matched those on Werner's body. His DNA was found on a glass in her room. Investigation of his home computer unveiled recordings mirroring those of the prior victims. A pattern emerged. Emerson targeted women resembling his wife in her youth. He lured them to particular motels, booking the room next to the last door on the left, equipped with surveillance gear. After filming their encounters, he returned to erase the evidence, the women themselves. In the interrogation chamber, Emerson's facade finally cracked. "They were a threat to everything," he muttered. "My image, my marriage, my world." The trial unfolded swiftly and dramatically. 3 families witnessed justice in the sterile courtroom. Emerson remained stoic, devoid of remorse, maintaining the mask that had shielded him in the corporate realm. A lifetime imprisonment awaited him as the judge delivered the sentence. As officers escorted him away, Reed caught his gaze. For an instant, she glimpsed a void behind his facade, not compassion, but its absence. A chilling emptiness where empathy should have resided. The media dubbed it the door on the left case. Psychologists probed Emerson's psyche. Enthusiasts delved into every detail. Yet for Reed, the case lingered unresolved. Sometimes, wandering down hotel corridors, she found herself counting doors, pondering the mysteries concealed within. In the evidence repository, 3 identical hotel keys endure, labeled and archived. Tangible reminders that certain doors, once opened, can never be shut again. Story 22. In a small suburban neighborhood, a mysterious key arrived for Sarah Miller. Wrapped in a plain envelope with no return address, the brass key seemed worn with time, yet oddly familiar. Despite Sarah's efforts, the key did not fit any of her locks. However, when she placed it on her coffee table, the broken grandfather clock chimed once, its hollow sound echoing through the hallway. Puzzled and unsettled, Sarah reported the strange incident to the authorities. At first, they dismissed it as a simple mistake or prank, but Sarah's intuition told her otherwise. The key, now in police custody, became the focal point of a chilling investigation that would shake the tranquility of the neighborhood. Detective Robert Harmon, a seasoned investigator with a knack for unraveling complex cases, was assigned to the mysterious key. As he delved into Sarah's background, he found nothing suspicious. She was an ordinary woman, a retired teacher living a quiet life, but the key held a dark secret waiting to be uncovered. Forensic analysis yielded no fingerprints except Sarah's on the key. The postmark on the envelope provided no leads. The key itself, a common schlage, seemed unremarkable yet carried a weight of history. It wasn't until Harmon ran the key's unique pattern through the database that a chilling connection emerged. 7 years prior, a similar key had been linked to a cold case involving a storage unit filled with horrors, blood-stained carpets, cutting tools, and images of unidentified women. The original investigation had hit a dead end, but now, with the key as a clue, the case was reopened. As the investigation progressed, Sarah's unease grew. She fortified her home with new locks and a security system, haunted by the question of why the key had found its way to her. And as Harmon dug deeper, a disturbing link emerged. The key led to Harold Jenkins, a former neighbor of Sarah's with a shadowy past. Jenkins, a quiet and unassuming man, had left no digital trail, no traces of his whereabouts. The search for him intensified, uncovering a trail of darkness hidden behind a facade of normalcy. Authorities discovered a cabin belonging to Jenkins, and beneath its floorboards, a hidden room revealed a macabre collection of brass keys, each bearing a name and date. Some keys corresponded to the women from the photographs, while others hinted at more victims yet to be found. The manhunt for Jenkins escalated, with the press dubbing him the Keymaster. Fear gripped the community as the hunt stretched across the country, and when Jenkins was finally cornered, he chose to end his own life rather than face justice. In his journal, Jenkins left a chilling message for Sarah, revealing his twisted obsession with her. The investigation uncovered 32 victims, bringing closure to families but leaving a scar on the community that would never fully heal. Sarah, forever changed by the darkness that had touched her life, never returned to her home. The grandfather clock, now stripped of its mystery, stood as a reminder of the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. The case of the mysterious key and the man behind it remains a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil can lurk behind the most ordinary of faces. And as the keys sit in silence, they tell a tale of lives lost and a truth too chilling to comprehend. Story 23: The Mysterious Man Who Vanished from the Coffee Shop. The coffee shop had been his sanctuary for years, his haven of routine and solitude. Each day he would occupy the same table, order the same black coffee, and immerse himself in silence. The barista recognized his face, but his identity remained a mystery to all. Then one fateful day, he failed to make his expected appearance. Concerned, the police investigated his usual spot and discovered a wallet left behind. Inside, a driver's license displayed a photo of him, but where a name and address should have been, there was only emptiness. Detective Sarah Mercer delved into the case, her fingertips tracing the cold metal table as she scrutinized the security footage. The man, now known as John Doe, seemed ordinary on camera, average in stature, unremarkable in appearance, clad in a navy coat with a weathered leather bag slung over his shoulder. His disappearance defied logic. He had entered, he had sat, but he had never departed. Replaying the footage, Mercer watched as John entered the bustling coffee shop, ordered his usual black coffee, and settled at the secluded corner table. He wrote in a notebook, occasionally pausing to gaze out the window until the moment he placed his wallet down, rose, and headed towards the restroom corridor. Yet he never returned. He never emerged through any exit. He simply vanished into thin air. As the investigation unfolded, Mercer discovered a perplexing anomaly. The man's wallet contained no personal details, only blank spaces where they should have been. Credit cards bore no names, only untraceable numbers. Cash, meticulously arranged, and a receipt from the coffee shop dated 3 days prior were found. A lone business card with a faintly printed phone number added to the enigma. Calling the number yielded no response, only the sound of rustling paper before the call abruptly disconnected. The barista, who had served the man for years, recalled his reserved nature and penchant for scribbling in a notebook. The cryptic pages, filled with coded text and perplexing sketches of unfamiliar buildings, baffled investigators. Mercer's scrutiny of the security footage revealed a peculiar flicker in the time stamp each morning when John entered. Returning to the coffee shop, she noticed an antique mirror hanging between the entrance and the restroom hallway. The frame bore intricate symbols reminiscent of those in John's notebook, hinting at a connection. Upon questioning the shop owner, she learned that the mirror had never been moved since its installation. Intrigued, Mercer approached it and felt an unusual warmth upon touching its surface. The forensics team uncovered a hidden compartment behind the mirror, containing identical wallets and a journal inscribed with entries dating back decades, all in John Doe's handwriting. The final journal entry hinted at experiments in temporal manipulation and identity transference. Mentions of crossing back and window points added to the mystery. Witnesses reported eerie occurrences around the coffee shop, including moving reflections and sightings of John Doe where no one sat. A breakthrough came with the arrival of Margaret Keller, a former physicist who shed light on the man's true identity. Daniel Weston, a brilliant physicist who had vanished during an experiment involving quantum mirrors. Weston theorized about crossing between parallel realities through specific locations, such as the coffee shop. Mercer's investigation led her to the revelation that the coffee shop stood above Weston's former research facility, where he had disappeared. Late one night, reviewing the security footage, she caught a glimpse of two versions of Weston in the mirror, one watching the other. Returning to the coffee shop, Mercer found the mirror shattered, with a final note amidst the shards. The experiment is complete. The window is closed. Do not attempt to follow. The case of the man who vanished without a trace remained unsolved, the coffee shop's closure marking the end of an era. Weston's fate remained a mystery, his notebooks and journals disappearing under inexplicable circumstances. Detective Mercer, haunted by the enigma, eventually resigned from the force. Neighbors occasionally glimpsed her engrossed in writing, a replica of Weston's notebook in hand. An antique mirror fragment adorned her wall, its surface sometimes rippling in unseen currents, a silent reminder of the mysterious man who slipped through the cracks of reality. Story 24. The tale began innocently enough for Michael and Sarah Klein, who found themselves the new occupants of a Victorian-era home with a history shrouded in mystery. Nestled within the walls of their charming abode lay a secret waiting to be unveiled, disguised as peeling wallpaper that whispered of forgotten tales. The couple, drawn to the home's antiquated allure, stumbled upon a peculiar water stain in the master bedroom. As Sarah's delicate fingers traced the yellowing discoloration, a hidden world beneath the surface beckoned to them. What started as a simple act of renovation soon spiraled into a journey of discovery, as layer by layer the truth began to unfurl. Beneath the outdated patterns of paisley and stripes, a haunting revelation emerged, a name etched in ink, repeated relentlessly across the wall. Eleanor Winters, the name echoed through the room, its presence palpable in the air. Questions lingered like shadows in the dim light, casting a veil of unease over the unsuspecting couple. Intrigued and unsettled, Michael delved into the depths of online archives, scouring for any trace of Eleanor Winters. The results were sparse, save for a single haunting entry, a missing persons case from decades past. And to their dismay, the woman in the photograph bore a striking resemblance to the previous owner of the house, Margaret Cavendish. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, unveiling a narrative woven with threads of obsession and tragedy. Sarah and Michael's once peaceful abode transformed into a stage for a chilling drama as they unraveled the enigmatic connection between Eleanor Winters and Margaret Cavendish. Their nights were consumed by relentless research, tracing the footsteps of those who had walked the halls before them. The walls whispered secrets of the past, urging the couple to uncover the truth buried within their midst. With each revelation, the line between reality and illusion blurred, leading them down a path fraught with uncertainty and dread. The shadows of the past cast long fingers over their present, enveloping them in a shroud of mystery that refused to be ignored. As the investigation unfolded, hidden truths came to light, revealing a tale of fractured identities and misplaced desires. The name on the wall, a haunting echo of a troubled mind seeking solace in a labyrinth of deceit and delusion. And in the depths of their home, beneath the floorboards and within the walls, lay the chilling remnants of a life lost to madness and obsession. Eleanor Winters, a spectral presence trapped in a web of lies spun by a fractured soul seeking refuge in the shadows. The final revelation pierced the veil of uncertainty, exposing the dark heart of the mystery that had gripped their home. The walls themselves bore witness to a tragedy long forgotten, etched in ink and blood, a tale of betrayal and madness that seeped into the very foundations of their reality. And as the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Michael and Sarah stood on the threshold of truth, their once peaceful sanctuary forever marred by the echoes of a past that refused to be silenced. The house, now a monument to a haunting legacy, whispered secrets of a bygone era to those who dared to listen. Story 25, The Mysterious Call. It was a pocket dial, a mere echo of static and muffled sounds that flickered through the operator's ears. Initially dismissed as a trivial mishap, the call took a chilling turn when a voice pierced through the noise. A woman's voice, barely audible, whispered urgently, "He's here." And then an eerie silence descended, swallowing the words whole. The phone number traced back to an empty house, a dwelling forgotten by time, abandoned for years without a soul to claim it. No signs of intrusion marred the peaceful stillness within its walls, no disturbances to disrupt the layers of dust settled like a shroud. Yet in the dimly lit kitchen, untouched by human hands for an age, the phone rested on the counter, its screen softly aglow. The call had been placed mere minutes ago, a ghostly echo from the past. Detective Morgan Reed found herself captivated by the haunting playback, her finger hovering over the button for the 5th time, drawn to the spectral whisper that lingered in the air, desperate, filled with a terror that defied explanation. The abandoned property, once belonging to the Sullivan family, stood as a silent witness to the mysteries that unfolded within its walls. The Sullivans had fled following a devastating fire that devoured the west wing of their home, leaving behind memories tainted by ash and sorrow. Turning to her partner, Detective Walsh, Morgan inquired about a background check on the number. The revelation sent a shiver down her spine, registered to Catherine Sullivan, the deceased daughter whose voice now echoed from beyond the veil. Catherine had perished in a tragic car accident 3 long years ago, her life cut short in a cruel twist of fate. As Morgan gazed at the phone secured in an evidence bag, a puzzle emerged before her, a spectral connection between a deceased woman and an abandoned house, a riddle wrapped in the enigma of the unknown. The forensic team's scrutiny revealed no tangible leads, no fingerprints, but faint smudges that refused to yield their secrets. The house remained sealed, a fortress of solitude untouched by the passage of time. The heart of their investigation lay in those 11 seconds of static, of labored breaths and 5 haunting words that echoed through the void. Voice analysis confirmed the spectral presence of Catherine Sullivan, her voice a ghostly whisper from the beyond, haunting the living with its presence. The timestamp of the call mirrored the exact moment of Catherine's tragic demise, a convergence of past and present that defied rational explanation. Morgan and Walsh delved into the depths of Catherine's past, seeking answers in the shadows of her history. Her father, now remarried, seemed bewildered by the unearthly connection. Her grief-stricken mother, alone in her humble abode, recognized the voice of her lost daughter in the spectral whisper, a phantom from the past. The trail led to Catherine's former beau, Mark Jennings, whose alibi held firm against the tide of suspicion. Yet the specter of doubt lingered, a shadow cast upon his past by the revelations contained within Catherine's hidden journal, a chronicle of love turned to fear, of control and isolation that culminated in a dark premonition of impending tragedy. Confronted once more, Mark's facade crumbled under the weight of scrutiny, his protestations ringing hollow in the face of damning evidence. The journal's final entry painted a portrait of fear and desperation, a chilling prophecy of a life cut short by malevolent hands. A revelation awaited, buried deep beneath the earth, as ground-penetrating radar unveiled the truth hidden 20 feet from the crash site, Catherine's actual phone, a silent witness to her untimely end. The buried device spoke volumes, its digital remnants revealing a harrowing tale of betrayal and deceit, of a life snuffed out in the darkness. The truth emerged with grim clarity. The accident that claimed Catherine's life was no mere twist of fate, but a carefully orchestrated act of malice. Mark's apartment yielded further horrors, a shrine to his obsession, a twisted homage to a life he had stolen. As justice closed in, Mark's delusions unraveled, his twisted game laid bare before the eyes of the law. The phantom call, the spectral whispers, all tools in his arsenal of deception, a macabre dance of shadows designed to confound and mislead. The trial ended swiftly, a verdict rendered in the face of overwhelming evidence. Catherine's voice, though silenced in death, spoke volumes from beyond the grave, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unspeakable evil. The phone from the abandoned house now rests in the evidence locker, a relic of a mystery solved but never forgotten. Its silent presence whispers of a truth laid bare, of justice served in the echoes of a voice that refused to be silenced. The tale of Catherine Sullivan lives on, a testament to the enduring power of those who find the courage to speak, even in the darkest of nights. Story 26. In the midst of renovations, mysterious artifacts often emerge from the depths of time. Old relics, forgotten treasures, whispers of the past. Yet when Sarah and Michael delved beneath the floorboards of their new Victorian-era home, they unearthed more than they bargained for. Nestled beneath the aged wood lay a letter carefully folded, its ink faded but its warning clear. Don't trust the one who knocked. Before their minds could grasp the gravity of the message, 3 sharp raps pierced the silence of the empty house, sending shivers down their spines. The charm of the estate auction had drawn them to this grand old house with its intricate details and storied past. Little did they know that their renovation project would unravel a tale of darkness and deceit. Detective Alina Reed, with her seasoned eyes and weathered hands, arrived at the scene. The floorboards stood open like gaping wounds, exposing the hidden secrets below. With gloved hands, she extracted the brittle note, knowing that the couple's inadvertent touch had compromised any potential evidence. As Sarah and Michael recounted the chilling sound of knocking, Reed sensed genuine fear in their eyes. Background checks painted a picture of normalcy for the couple newlyweds, steady jobs, clean records. But the house whispered of secrets long buried. Once belonging to the Hargroves, it had stood silent for years after the passing of its last inhabitant, the reclusive widow Margaret Hargrove. No enemies, no suspicions in her death, yet an unsettling aura lingered. The forensic analysis dated the note back 2 decades, its words etched in a tremor of distress. Reed delved deeper, unearthing the troubled past of Franklin and Margaret Hargrove. Franklin, the retired teacher turned recluse, harboring a paranoia that hinted at shadows unseen. A former student's recollection painted a picture of a man haunted by an invisible specter, a collector of debts and fears. A breakthrough came in the form of Margaret's fading sister, whispering of debts unpaid and a collector relentless. The truth unfurled like a dark tapestry woven with betrayal and desperation. Franklin's debts had led to a fatal confrontation, with tools turned to weapons and the crawlspace turned to a tomb. Victor Mercer, the lone shark collector, vanished without a trace, his bones finally uncovered beneath the house's foundation. The diaries of Margaret, hidden in the attic, told a tale of fear and guilt, of knocks heard in the dead of night when all should be still. The case closed with the bones of the past returned to the earth, justice served in the silence of the night. Sarah and Michael fled the tainted house, leaving it to stand as a silent witness to its own dark history. Whispers linger in the vacant halls, tales of 3 knocks in the darkness, a reminder of the secrets buried deep. Detective Reed closed the case, yet mysteries hung in the air like specters of the past. Some truths remain veiled, hidden in the shadows of time, waiting to be uncovered or forever lost to the whispers of the wind. Story 27. The house lay dormant for years, a silent witness to the mysteries that lingered within its walls. Whispers among the neighbors spoke of a young woman who vanished, leaving behind a void that no one dared to fill. When the new occupants crossed the threshold, they encountered a peculiar sight, a bedroom sealed shut, a sanctuary untouched by time. With a gentle push, the door relented, revealing a realm frozen in solitude. The air inside was thick, burdened with the weight of neglect, yet an inexplicable unease hung in the stillness. The bed stood immaculate, the mirror devoid of blemish. A lone candle stood as a sentinel, its essence extinguished, leaving behind a trail of solidified tears. And there upon the desk lay a notebook, its pages caressed by fresh ink, a silent testament to a life interrupted. Detective Morgan sifted through the chronicles within the notebook's embrace, each page a whispered echo of Elise Winter's existence. A young soul of 26, swallowed by the shadows of uncertainty, her meticulous script danced across the parchment until it met an abrupt crescendo, a plea etched with urgency and fear. "I know he's watching me tonight," the words confessed, a chilling revelation of a world askew. If something unfolds, know it was no chance encounter. As the detective gathered evidence, a subtle fragrance lingered in the chamber, mingling with the scent of aged dust, a hint of something elusive, a phantom of the past. The landlord, a spectral figure in the doorway, bore a visage etched with silent remorse. "We scoured every corner ere listing it for tenancy," his voice wavered. "That portal was never locked." Elise's life unfurled before the investigative gaze, a paralegal immersed in the enigmatic realm of Harriman and Associates, a bastion of legal prowess veiled in shadow. Colleagues painted a portrait of a woman consumed by her pursuit for truth, unraveling the threads that bound reality to deception. Her essence, a tapestry of diligence and solitude, woven into the fabric of a vanishing act. Within the confines of the chamber, truth eluded the grasp of the investigators. No scuffle scarred the sanctum, no crimson stain marred the tapestry of time. Instead, a tableau frozen in perpetuity, a snapshot of a life paused in mid-breath, awaiting a resolution lost to the winds of time. Beneath the waning candle's gaze, revelations unfurled, a hidden trove unearthed from the clutches of obscurity. A clandestine cache, harboring secrets of a world veiled in deception, whispered of alliances forged in shadows, of truths obscured by the veil of deceit. As the investigators delved deeper, a labyrinth of deceit unfurled, a tapestry of corruption woven with threads of betrayal. The tendrils of malfeasance reached far beyond the confines of the chamber, entwining destinies in a dance of subterfuge. The hour of reckoning drew nigh as the shadows of the past converged with the present. Vincent Harriman, a maestro of deception, stood exposed in the harsh light of truth. His fortress of lies crumbled, revealing the darkness that lurked within. Justice, a phantom long sought, emerged from the shadows, wielding the sword of retribution. Harriman's machinations unraveled, his facade of innocence shattered by the weight of Elise's legacy. In the annals of justice, a chapter closed, marking the end of a saga wrought with treachery. The house, a sentinel of secrets, bore witness to the unfolding drama, a silent observer in a tale of shadows and light. Its walls echoed with whispers of a life reclaimed, a soul vindicated in a tapestry of time.